Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pylon Show number 132, one of the probably many upcoming EU friendly editions. We are mostly going to talk about the DreamHack SE2 season finals of Summer that just took place. As you guys can see, I am already joined by a couple of lovely guests. But first up, I want to address the reason why this is happening here on my channel. If you guys are diehard Pylon Show followers, you guys may have already seen the statement of Artosis, the TLDR of everything, and you guys can always take a look at the Pylon Show Discord, is that Dan is just a very, very busy man. It's not easy to beat those Protosses in Brood War. It's not easy to cast a GSL with Nick, because let's be real, he has to study for 2. Just kidding, Nick. And on top of that, he's been casting a lot of other games too. And besides that, I believe he also has a child or 4 to take care of. So basically, Dan just said at one point, love the Pylon Show, love working with Cobra, but I don't feel that I really am as focused on StarCraft 2 as I should be to do the best possible job I can do. And it might be worth looking into another host. Now, this is not like, well, Rotti's going to take over forever and I'm the new man in town. But obviously, when I got invited to the chat with Cobra and Dan, I was like, well, I do still have a lot of time. I don't have any children. I also don't have a tasteless to take care of. So I was like, you know what? This sounds fun because the Pylon Show is obviously a project that's very near and dear to my heart, especially the first year when it was always Jeff. And then I think I was on the show more often than anyone else. So I've always had obviously a very special feeling about the Pylon Show. And I'm just going to do the best possible job I can together with Cobra and the rest of the team to make the Pylon Show awesome again. Because we know it's been very inconsistent. We know it's been a bit here, a bit there on different channels. We want none of that. We want to make it very easy for you guys to follow the Pylon Show again. You can expect it here. Pylon Show also has a YouTube now. Just type in the Pylon Show over at YouTube and you guys can follow all the news updates there. Cobra also made an awesome video about where he explained why the Pylon Show has been so inconsistent lately. And obviously a big shout out to all the Patreon supporters that still stuck with the Pylon Show. And I'm going to hope that you guys will enjoy the show as much as before, because that's obviously my main goal. And we have a lot of things in the works on how we want to make the show a bit better, a bit easier to follow, and restructure a couple of things. Did not have time for that this week. This week I was obviously in Stockholm and it was a long week. So today we're just going to have an old school, fun, casual Pylon show where I'm going to introduce the lovely guest and then we're going to talk about StarCraft. But yes, just wanted to get that out of the way. So let's introduce these lovely nerds. Let's start off with that young sweetheart from Romania, my good friend CuKu. Your second appearance already on the Pylon Show. How are you doing, matey?
Uh, I'm really I'm really happy because it's the second time when I'm here. I was really excited when Cobra wrote it to me.
Yeah, you had a good time on the Pylon Show the first time?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know a lot of people that watch the show also liked it because obviously a lot of us we've been doing it for a long time, and sometimes we have our days where we're a bit low on energy. And I think it's cool to see new faces on the Pioneer Show, especially obviously if you bring a lot of positive energy. And that is one of my goals, by the way, guys. I don't want to make this the weekly show where Roddy talks with Todd and the Muslim or something. We're not gonna do that. I'm gonna try to get as many up and coming streamers and just other people that have been involved in the community in a long time in the upcoming weeks. And obviously, some of the Team Roddy boys will make an appearance too. Next up, I see the second most beautiful Kevin that lives in the greater area of Rotterdam. What's up, Harstem? How are you doing?
Doing all right, especially after getting that title. I'm pretty happy with that. I know a couple of Kevins that are pretty good looking, so I'm not sure where you're ranking yourself here, but
Nowhere near the top two, mate. Nowhere near.
well, that's a very kind introduction. Doing all
the
right. It's been a
rank
while
roulette
since
is
I.
back, and I
Oh.
can't believe you put me on blast like that, mate.
Yeah, so but yeah, maybe later in this season you can have another try with one of the other episodes, like we said, and should be good. I'm not worried for you. You can get your revenge.
You know, I was so pissed the rest of the night because some days I'm becoming an old man, and some days I wake up and my brain just doesn't function, and that's not because I did anything wild. Just some days I'm just not myself, and that was a day where I felt like I had a head the size of a hot air balloon, and I was like, all right, I know we said 8, I'm gonna do it anyway. And I felt like I was so stupid. I was like, I can do better, okay? And I know ranked roulette is important. Everyone talks about it. I'm like, damn it, I don't want to be on the record like that. So I hope that I will have a shot at redemption. Thank you so much for joining me, Kev. I'm looking forward to see what you have to say about the DreamHack SE2 Masters Summer Final. And last but not least, a beautiful Canadian man is joining us, Steadfast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just like CuKu, it is my second time on here, so hopefully don't have the sophomore slump. Really looking forward to being on here with these guys. I'm going to address the elephant in the room right away. You might have noticed it. One of these people kind of doesn't belong, and you've got all these players in here and a couple casters and MMR differences. Yeah, CuKu's got a different mic from us. So maybe, I don't know what he's doing here. But yeah, no, I'm just really excited to talk StarCraft with some incredibly high-level players and maybe add my 5K NA 2 cents into the mix.
Mate, when you say that, I'm just feeling that CuKu is going to send me a DM later on. It's like, hey, Rotti, is there a chance that Team Rotti can give me a Shure SM7B as well? Thanks, Steadfast. Now I got to do a 24-hour fundraiser again to get CuKu a new mic. Can't believe you would do me like that. All right. Well, you guys already saw this week in StarCraft, of course. That segment was prepared by Creighton Olsen. So now let's just go ahead and start talking about the big event that took place over the last 4 or 5 days. We were sort of back to the old. I do think it's important that people don't get too carried away. I was there and I was very happy to hang out, obviously, with Kalaris, with Zombie Grub, Todd, Benny. It was a lot of fun. Wadi, of course, as well. But it's still not the same, guys. Like COVID, it's still around, it's still a thing, and it still sucks. Obviously, the players were still playing from online, and I do genuinely believe that some of these tournaments would look a bit different if it was offline versus online. But the TLDR is that we made a step in the right direction, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. So maybe before we actually talk about player performances and we go over the groups and the results, CuKu, how much did you watch of the DreamHack SC2 season finals? Let's call it the Summer Masters. And did you enjoy it?
Yeah, well, since the first time when I actually found out that DreamHack is going to be like, is going to get all the casters in one place, like, everybody was extremely excited for it, and I was extremely excited for it. And for like the first 30 minutes of the day one of DreamHack final, when I saw like all the production and the studio and all of this stuff, and I was like, guys, this is great. Like I almost forgot how StarCraft is looking like in a studio and stuff, and I was like really excited. I really enjoyed it. I watched like half of it, to be honest. I couldn't watch the entire, but it was a great tournament overall and a great production. Big shout out to everybody.
Gav, first impression?
Yeah, it was good. It was very fun to see everyone back together and to kind of get the old school StarCraft feel again. The studio production is, yeah, like CuKu mentioned, is very different from the online stuff. No matter, I know they tried really hard with the online stuff. Sometimes it worked well, sometimes a little bit less well, but yeah, the studio broadcast is great and it's a good first step. But I am missing, just the guy, rather than being in his room when he wins, I feel like there needs to be a ceremony at the end. I miss that especially, and I've been missing that for a long time, and I just can't wait to get that back. Seeing Reynor, actually lift the trophy that isn't already behind him the entire time would be pretty sick. So, yeah, I don't know. It's mixed feelings still. Mixed feelings.
Steadfast, have you been able to catch a lot of it?
Yeah, I caught a fair bit of it. It was obviously an amazing tournament. We finally got to see how underpowered Protoss really is, not making it to the top 8. Yeah, no, I do want to echo the sentiments of Harstem there. I think Reynor would be one of the actual first players who could actually nail the champagne ceremony. So that would be pretty fun to see, and it's a shame that we haven't had a chance to see that recently or see that yet. Yeah, and then I just want to say it is amazing that Shopify's Toby put together a team specifically to destroy Trap's career, and he's doing just such a great job of it.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how Protoss players underperformed, the reasoning for it, and a whole lot more. But I'm happy to hear the first impressions. Gav, obviously you casted quite a few games as well together with Cats. I have to admit, I wasn't really watching it because I was mostly just focused on the A stream and hanging out with the guys in real life. Because obviously most of the time, even if I'm not casting, I have to do analysis. And if I'm then watching the B stream, that doesn't really do a whole lot for the main show. But yeah, how was the experience casting with Cats and how were the games?
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed casting with Cats. I like Group A a lot, especially because both Scarlet and Lambo did relatively well. I was a bit sad that Dream dodged Trap in this way. It felt like that series would have been really cool as well. Seeing Trap lose the way it did was a bit painful. Group D obviously was a little bit disappointing. I am a Clam fan after all, and I also kind of like Neep a lot. So it's like the two guys that I was rooting for going down as they did is a bit of a yikes. And the rest of the show, I didn't catch everything. I watched a bunch of replays once the replay pack came out, and I watched a little bit of the finals as well. Not everything, but most games I did watch. So yeah, it was a good tournament game wise. I think just had no pro losses.
How was the casting experience overall from home together with Cats? Because normally I feel like most of the time when you cast, you can have a lot of different partners, and now you're just teamed up with Cats, right, for the entire 2-day, right?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's fine. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, especially because we haven't really casted before, and then he. Like there is a little bit of ping, which is not super noticeable, but because you don't have like the patterns that you have with some other people, especially at the start, it was a lot of oh, you go ahead, you know, or even if it didn't happen that much, in my head it happened a lot, which can be just as bad. So yeah, that's a little bit tricky. But overall, the Cats is fantastic. He's a professional, so I had a very good time. And it was a long time since I actually spoke with him for such lengths. And Cats doesn't really stick to the script as much. He's down to just talk about whatever pops up. So we had some good conversations as well. And I think at the end of the first day, just before the next, I think it was before the last match, he was like, "Hey Kevin, I think we should rebrand ourselves to the A team on the B stream." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, yeah, this is a real banger. So we come back for like the final game, and he goes, "Welcome back to the A team on the B stream." And for the second day, the entire time, every time we came back, he just kept going with it. I have no clue where it came from. It made me so happy.
I think that's awesome to hear, and I do want to point out, I was really wondering if you were going to mention ping or not, because it seems like maybe the most ridiculous thing at home, but you do really notice it when you're casting with an Australian or you're casting with someone, especially on the West Coast. There is that little bit of extra delay where normally you think you're free to speak, and then there isn't. But there's one more thing that I obviously want to explain that I think I've explained many times already on my own stream, but not necessarily on the Pylon Show. It is important for the casters to be in the same room if that's possible. Some people might think it was really weird that we had like the studio show, but then the players are still online and the fans weren't welcome. It's like, what's the point of bringing out the casters? There is much, much, much better chemistry and flow when you can look at someone. If I'm casting a game together with Ben and I see his face in the corner of my eye, I know when he wants to speak. Or if I'm speaking like for 30 seconds too late, but he's got something important, Ben can be like, and you guys don't see that because you're just watching the game, but it does really make the overall flow of the show a lot better. So this really is an important first step. But obviously, once more, StarCraft 2 is not complete until the players are actually offline again, and we can talk with some of the fans, and we can hear people chant players' name again, because that's obviously what makes it complete. But it does make the show a little bit better, and I also think it's just nice for DreamHack to actually, for instance, this was like the first time that we met this production crew that's been running a lot of our online shows. Because in the old days, that a lot of the WCS events, we had a very different crew than the ones we currently work with. So that's also kind of nice that after spending hundreds of hours with people only over voice, only over Discord, people could now actually meet each other in real life. So it is important. But yeah, the TLDR is, it's only going to get better from here, hopefully. You already talked a little bit about the games. Let's just go ahead. Actually, one last question before we dive into all of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I share one anecdote? Actually, now that you were talking about the things, it was one of the first casting gigs I ever did. It was at the World Championships in Cologne 2013, the first real big tournament with Heart of the Swarm, and I was on the analyst decks with QXC and Jorisar, and Todd was casting that event as well. And we basically the entire time it was me, QXC, and Jorisar, and whenever we needed to wrap up somewhere, Jorisar under the table would start doing this. And they basically to wrap up. And then one time Todd joined the desk and Joristar started doing this. And Todd just looks at him and kind of keeps talking for a bit more because he has no clue what this means, you know? And Joristar starts speeding up like this. And the moment the shot ends, Todd just goes, "What the hell are you doing with your finger, man? You're making me so nervous. Like, don't ever do that again."
Okay, and it's extra funny that you tell me this because now I can share something else that for 3 or 4 years in a row, Todd used to have this in his mind where he's like, "Hey, you are much better at the hype than I am, so I'll do the analysis and you'll do the hype." And then whenever there was like almost a fight, Todd would do this thing, which basically means, keep going. You've got this. And I was always like thought, like, I am not necessarily a hype caster. Like, obviously, I try to put the energy into it. But it's like, he would just do this. And he would do this sometimes to Maynard. Whenever he thought the game was going to end, he would do this thing with Maynard. And at one point, Maynard is like, Todd, my throat is bleeding over here, okay? I swear to God, if you do this thing one more time, I'm gonna have a meltdown. So that's extra funny that Charizard did this to Todd. Because Todd probably thought, ooh, that means I have to keep speaking. But the opposite had to happen. All right, enough about that. Let's go ahead and actually dive into the groups a little bit, because obviously there's a lot to talk about when it comes to player performances and whatnot. Steadfast, let's just kick things off with you, because we already heard Kev a little bit. In Group A, we had Dream, Scarlet, Lambo, and Trap. And if I turn my head upside down and I'd be like, oh, that's how the group ended, I'd be like, yeah, that actually makes some sense to me. I did not predict this group to end the way it did. What did you make of it?
First of all, Dream, out of his mind play. This whole tournament, I think he got overshadowed a little bit because of, how he got knocked out. But he was playing at a level that we haven't seen from him probably since the end of Heart of the Swarm, when him and He Who Must Not Be Known had a bunch of epic best of sevens, and he was the only player who could beat that Zerg, and he was just insanely good. He was the one doing the first Drilling Claw Widowmine drops in the late game, and he was literally doing it 7 years ago. So to see him doing as well as he was incredible. And then I already mentioned it in the pregame. Trap's been winning everything recently. People are like, oh man, Protoss is pretty strong, but it's been Trap who's been winning everything. I think someone said it was 5 of the last 7 premier tournaments he's entered, he's won, and that's a crazy stat. And then he gets bopped by Shopify Rebellion, personally. It really does feel like Toby just doesn't want Trap in this tournament, and everyone talks about it, the European style of Zerg versus the Korean style of Zerg. And for a while, it's kind of been slid back under the rug because we don't get to see it that much. We don't get to see the difference. But Lambo shows us yep, the European Zergs still have that little extra edge over the Korean Zergs. Just there's something, there's that X factor, And then obviously Scarlet, even she's from Canada, and that, makes me very happy that she did well. But I know that she is very open to approaching the game from a more analytical standpoint than most other North American players. So I'm quite sure that her and Lambo really put their gigantic brains together and made a Zerg Archon. So it was just, first of all, a great group. Very sad that Lambo didn't make it out because he was so good. But I'm gonna come off as being a homer for the foreigners and all that jazz, but seeing Scarlet and Lambo top 2 this group would have been amazing. I'm equally happy that we saw Dream do really, really well, because that was great. It's just a little bit heartbreaking that it all ended with a team kill at the end.
CuKu? Group A?
Group A, for me, to be honest, it was a bit mind blowing. When I first was looking to the Group A, I was 100% sure that Trap is going to take the first place because he was just coming out from the TSL, which he actually won after making a comeback over Reynor. But after that, when Dream played out of his mind, as Steadfast said, and Scarlet, I think it was the surprise of the group. I don't think actually a lot of people was expecting Scarlet to go so ham in this group, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Kev, you already mentioned a little bit, and obviously you saw all the games as you were casting them together with Cats. Anything to add to what Steadfast and CuKu said, and what really stood out for you?
I mean, Dream performed well, but I don't quite share that. It felt like he played out of his mind. He 2-rexed a lot, and he showed good games. Don't get me wrong, but usually Korean Terrans tend to do relatively well if the Zergs aren't called Sarah or Reynor. So I don't think that performance was too weird. It would have been different had he beaten Trap. I don't think he necessarily overperformed there. I think he just got a bit lucky with the opponents, because Trap's PvT is probably the best in the world, and I don't think Lambo's and Scarlet's CVT is necessarily up there in the top 5, perhaps even, of CVTs in the world. Trap underperforming. It feels like Trap just kind of struggles with Queen all-ins, we discussed it a bit pre-show. It feels like the way that he plays the game is that he relies a lot on good unit control, very good early game, insane adept movement, lots of adept sacrifices. But if the early game doesn't do much and he gets queen walked, I'm having a very difficult time seeing any of his builds, and that includes every single build he played in the TSL 7 finals, hold any queen all in. I just don't think it is possible. Yeah, if you have someone with as strong an early game as Lambo, that is very good in those situations and can analyze, hey, my opponent likes to sacrifice 2 adepts there, and I can just counter all in this, and that's what Lambo did. So that wasn't the biggest surprise. Scarlet did surprise me a little bit. I didn't think that she was going to be capable of performing this well against a top player, but it seems like she's in good shape. She looks strong against Inno as well, but we'll get there later, I guess.
Guys, also, if somebody says something that you don't really like, this doesn't have to be Rotti speaks, you answer, and wait until Rotti says it, you can talk.
I can
CuKu, if you want to disagree with Harstem,
Okay.
Harstem, if you want to disagree with Steadfast, Steadfast, you want to rebuttal, go for it, okay, guys? This is an open floor. Steadfast? Nothing?
Yes. No, I was more thinking of like obviously you look at the matches. I would think that Dream would be expected to beat Scarlet and Lambo. You're right about the Korean Terrans. Honestly, I was thinking more about his match, and it's a little bit later on. But even in defeat against Reynor, he looked better than I expected him to, and it was really, really cool to see that. Yeah, I think he's still got a ways to go, but I think we could see him become one of the top Terrans again. Is more what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, he mainly does seem like a ZVT or TVZ specialist at the moment, right? Probably okay-ish as well, TVT. Not quite sure how I feel about his TVP. A little bit up and down, but most Terrans feel relatively inconsistent in that matchup, so can't blame him too much.
All right, Kev, then I've got a direct one for you. Scarlet advancing over Lambo in that deciders match. Is that a point on the board for NA over EU, or you don't think it matters too much?
No, we can forget about it real fast. It's okay. If she does it a second time, however, we'll count it as 2, But this one we'll throw in the bank for now, and we're not counting it quite yet. Nah, I mean, it's impressive. Lambo is very good preparation-wise, CVZs. He looks scary in the DreamHack Summer. He could have taken down Reynor. He took down Sarah. Like, his CVZ is absolutely on point. And yeah, he fell short there, and that surprised me probably the most in that group, more than Scarlet beating Trap, is that Lambo, after looking so strong in DreamHack Summer in ZVZ, they kind of dropped it there.
Steadfast, how would you explain this to people that follow StarCraft but don't necessarily know all the ins and outs and pay attention to the tiny details, as Reynor would always call them? How can Lambo beat Cyril in Europe, push Reynor to the limit, but then not beat Scarlet on a moment where, I know it's weird, but you can kind of say it matters the most?
Well, for one, Harstem hit the nail on the head. Lambo is an exceptionally good preparation-based player. You can't prepare for necessarily thinking you're going to play Scarlet when, honestly, he probably was expecting to play Trap again in that rematch. Or wait, was that... No, it was Scarlet who...
That was the decider match when they played against each
Oh
other.
yeah, it was the decider match. Oh
moves on
yeah.
to
So
the
no,
playoff.
Scarlet had already beaten Trap, but he still was probably expecting before the group to have to play Dream or Trap in the decider match. So he was probably not focused that much on ZVZ. Also, I would say Scarlet is a little bit more unpredictable. Definitely more unpredictable than Cyril. Maybe under certain circumstances, more unpredictable than Reynor too, which is crazy to say because Reynor will just do anything and beat you with it, because he's so insanely talented and so insanely good as a player. But in terms of the tiny details, I would say it's like if you watch the games, first of all, that they were kind of wonky start to finish. I think game 1 was the closest to a macro game that there was. And then game 2 was they both all into each other, and Scarlet's was just a little bit better. I think she microed just a little bit better. And then game 3, their opening build orders, Scarlet blind countered him basically. So really it was, and the only game that Lambo won was that pseudo macro game. So in terms of preparation, Lambo did have some prepared builds going into it, but it seems like so did Scarlet, and just the way they ran into each other was a little bit unfortunate for Lambo. It's more than that because there's more nuance to playing the video game, but it was it was definitely the kind of thing that, especially in a best of 3 as well, anything can happen.
Yeah, also when I was looking to that series, like I watched the entire series, and every time it felt like Scarlet knew already what Lambo it's up to and what he's going to do. Like especially the last game when he's going for a 12 pool and just Scarlet is blind countering him, and that's it.
One maybe last question then about Group A, because I can get behind a lot of the things that you guys are saying. Recently, a little over a month ago, for fun, just because I had some extra time on my hands, I made a power ranking when it came to the foreign players. And I had a hard time figuring out where exactly I wanted to put Scarlet, but since he beat Australia so damn convincingly, I was like, Australia is someone that I feel like a lot of the foreigners rate very high. And that wasn't even a close series. Scarlett just looked better in the matchup overall than Australia did. As he also said he was confident. I was like, you know what? I think I ended up putting Scarlett around number 11 and number 12. I had a couple of DMs. I'm not going to let anyone know who it was, but they said, you are really overrating Scarlett, okay? There's no way that Scarlett's that good. Scarlett's like one of the most overrated players in the foreign scene. But then these are the big moments, and I still feel that she kind of delivers. So are maybe a lot of the pro gamers or the diehard experts, are they underrating Scarlet a little bit, Kev?
Well, I think recently Scarlet's just been on the up. I'm not sure if I necessarily share your sentiment on how good Australia is and how big that result was. I think Australia is very good, but I think a confident win over a single player is so difficult to judge. Like, yeah, how much better that makes them all of a sudden. I feel like recently she has been looking a lot stronger, and from here on out, I'm actually expecting more similar results. She seems to do well with Shopify. Perhaps some more structured, like some structure behind her is good. I don't know if that's the case or that she just felt like playing more again. Like obviously just speculation, but yeah, she seems better. I think 11 is well, after this result, I guess is too low, but before I probably would have told you as well slightly too high. So yeah, it's so difficult to say because judging based on the result is yeah, hindsight is kind of 2020, and here we would say she's what, the third best foreigner. So
maybe that goes a bit too far, but I mean, we obviously cannot forget either. Like, I feel that Scarlett is in this like weird spot where obviously she's a very popular player, so she gets a lot of love, and then there are a lot of fans who maybe overrate Scarlett a little bit. But then I also feel that maybe some of the critics, they start underrating her, because we can't forget that Scarlett for some time was legitimately one of the best players in the foreign scene, without a doubt. And even when Sarah was invincible, if there was one player who was close to beating Sarah a couple of times, it was Scarlett. And I just gotta say, it makes me happy to see we see more and more of the old Scarlett back, where it's not just the big name Scarlett anymore, but it's also Scarlett still matters, and especially in the relevant scene, she's a very, very good player. I think
Yeah,
that's
I think she's one of those players who, depending on how badly she wants it, how badly she wants to win, is going to determine how well she does for the next couple of months. I think probably being on Shopify has been the biggest difference. I can imagine her and Lambo having deep conversations about Zerg and how underpowered it is, and how to get the most out of that race there to push it to its limits. And I think that's probably why we're seeing her do so well. But in addition, I think depending on maybe not the day of the week, but depending on the month, you could rank her as high as maybe a top 5 foreigner, or you could rank her as low as a top 20, maybe even top 25 foreigner. Like, there have been days where she's looked insanely good, and then there have been days where she's looked less so, like it's not a consistent thing. And I hope what you're saying is correct. I hope we are seeing her on the upswing, and I hope we're going to see her experience some big success over the next 6, 12 months, even 2 years.
All right, last thing about Group A, because obviously otherwise it's going to be 9-9 show. Kev, if I ask you, despite this, is Trap still the best Protoss in the world? What is your answer?
Yeah.
CuKu?
Yeah.
Steadfast?
Nope, it's Zest.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, man, let's go ahead and move on to Group B then. Group B, obviously, on paper was fireworks, and I liked it. I thought it lived up to the hype a little bit. There's one thing, I'm sure that you guys saw Probe's attack on Oxide, right? The very first game of the group was ready to all in Maru. And then right when he walks up the ramp, he kind of guns down his own prism, doesn't kill it, but he leaves it with 5 HP. And I didn't want to say this on the DreamHack podcast because then it's professional and people get upset. But I actually really love Probe. I had a great time with him in Australia. We had a fun time. So I know that he doesn't mind a little joke. That reminded me of a guy that like wants to fight but doesn't really know how to fight. And he throws a punch and he hits himself in the face. That's kind of like the first thing I thought of when he walked up the run when he almost killed his own prism. It was always going to be a really brutal group for Probe, so I don't think we were too shocked to see him at the bottom. But obviously the other three very big names, did it play out the way you thought it would, CuKu?
Well, first time when I saw Group B, I was really sad that because I realized that one of Zest, Reynor, or Maru is going to get eliminated, and that was I think the most painful thing. But yeah, to be honest, the Group B went exactly how I was expecting it to go for. Maru first place, Reynor second place, Zest third place. I mean, Zest for me it feels like really inconsistent sometimes, and if he's playing good, he's like can beat everybody 3-0 or whatever, but he have some days when he's just not feeling it. And yeah, and I don't think it's a surprise for somebody that Probe. To be honest, I also got a little bit excited when I saw the Oxide game, and I saw that Probe had the Word Prince with the Immortal. It felt like he was, for a second there was some hope, but in the end it was just Maru, and you can't really focus your own prism while you play against Maru.
Kev, I don't know if you were able to catch the Maru Zest game on the Romanta side, but I thought Maru played hella well there. Were you on that hype train too, or were you kind of triggered where you're like, no, that's not what you're supposed to do with Proto Zest. He could have done X, Y, Z.
I didn't actually watch that game yet. It was
Okay.
yeah. So I can't. I watched the Reynor Zest replays, but I haven't watched the Maru Zest yet. I was very curious what happened in those series, so I can't comment too much on the rest.
The Romance side game is a banger. You got to check it out. Steadfast, did you catch it?
I did. I caught the last I don't know 2/3 of it, which was about 35 minutes worth of game.
I like that. Huh?
Yeah, it was an incredible game. I first of all, Maru playing, like full turtle mode, really just battening down the hatches and not letting anything in and holding for like so long with that. And then Zest with some incredible plays. He has been the first player, I think, to do this with the mothership in PvT. I could be mistaken, but I feel like he's the first person to use that mass recall and just pull his army to opposite corners of the map. He's been doing it a lot in PvZ, but to do it in PvT is like really cool and really smart, specifically against that playstyle. And he, in a situation where I thought there was no way he was going to have a mobile army start to break through those defenses, he broke through them, created a win condition for himself, and then refused to use High Templar and War Prism, despite the fact that he had them for like the next 7 fights. And it was like such a good game, and you should definitely watch it. But oh man, it was heartbreaking to watch as a Zest fan, I think. As a Maru fan, you should watch that game though.
Kev, you did watch the final series between Reynor and Zest. Well, I felt like the first one, Zest obviously being able to get it done, looked good. The final 2 games, I couldn't help but fight the feeling like I really hated that every time the Koreans lose online, it's like, oh, it's late. Especially Zest, who's an absolute warrior of the night. I have the feeling that that guy wakes up at 6 p.m. anyway, so I feel like nothing is really late for him. But I did have the feeling that the fighting spirit was a bit gone from Zest at that point.
That series was. If you compare these 2 games and you would anonymize them, I put this on rank roulette. I have no clue what I would say, but no, that second series was it was very painful to watch, especially because he played so well in that first series. It's probably added on a little bit how close he was, as you guys say, on Romanta side and close to getting first. That can be annoying, especially if you then have to wait another series between Probe and Reynor, and then you need to play the final. But yeah, I was watching that series and actually couldn't believe my eyes. Absolutely not comparable to that first one, where he honestly looked very dangerous for Reynor, because Reynor is not so much a warrior of the early game, right? He's good at it, and he's good with many queens. He's good at defending, but for whatever reason, he's not too keen on all-inning. He's not too keen on necessarily killing process. And I also felt like Zess sometimes plays it a little bit, well, not quite super greedy, but also a little bit ambitious when it comes to the economy. Double adept, third base always. Very similar things with the air weapons, and then going in, like on light shade as well. That hold by Reynor was good, or that hold by Zess was good, but I still feel like, yeah, there was a bit more there, and I was very afraid for Reynor, honestly. After watching that first series, I was very surprised to see it go this way. Didn't seem like the same guy at all.
All right. So I want to propose a question that I don't think really matters because I don't think this is ever going to change. But this is something that was brought up in the green room. I do not necessarily support this at all, but I was wondering how you guys would feel about this. Like, I do think the DreamHack Starcraft 2 season summer finals, or like any seasonal finals, I feel like every game should be top tier. And obviously, going into this group, we knew it was going to be very, very tough for Probe. Now, someone said, you know what? They should just give an extra slot to Korea or to Europe and let Taiwan and Oceania play a playoff spot against each other where only one of those two makes it in. Do you guys think that's too harsh on those reasons? Do you guys think that's a bad idea? Or is that actually something that you could appreciate? Because the season finals, everything should be top tier. And if it feels like two slots are going to regions that will just have a very, very hard time making it out, it takes away a little bit of the prestige that the season final should be. What's your opinion on that statement, Kev?
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think it's the one thing that I really like is that I don't think the prize money there should be less. I think it's important to incentivize the smaller regions with good prize money. But I think when it comes to the big tournaments, the prestige should be for, well, the highest level of play. And I still want to give these people always the opportunity to play, but perhaps make the road a bit longer. I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as the prize money stays similar for them. So I don't think there
of course.
should be a difference there. I think that's very important, because that is, I mean, that's the entire point of the region lock, is that people can support themselves. So if you're going to stick with the region lock, you can't then say, well, we give all the spots to Europe because they're performing better. Then, like, why are we region
Oh,
locking?
no. We're not touching prize money. We're not touching distribution.
Yeah, no, then I'm fine with it. If you just give, basically, have 17 people or like one extra person get that bottom prize money, I'm completely fine with this. Yeah, just have a play in and get one extra spot. That's cool.
Steadfast?
I would not have thought of that solution, but yeah, that's perfect. That's a great solution. I would even go so far as to say make it like a big show match, like give it its own production. Maybe even make it like so I know ESL ANZ is a thing. Have them run the production for that. You can make it big pomp and circumstance. Even make it like screw it, boost the prize pool, make it like a $500 show match between the two of them, and then whoever wins advances into the actual DreamHack finals proper. And then not only that, not only do you have like the fact that these players have like proven themselves a little bit more, there's a little bit more money. Now there's even a little bit of hype around them, because it's like, well, not only did you have to get here through normal means, you also then had to fight this like, mano y mano gladiator style match to actually make it in. And it's like, well, okay, like there's a little blood on my sword already. Like, you want to come at me, bro?
CuKu?
Yeah, actually, I was never thinking to that, but the first look, it seemed like a great idea. Like because besides the fact that the viewer experience is going to be better at like the games are going to be better at the DreamHack season final, it's also creating, like Steadfast said, a lot more hype for like the players who usually people think that they are going to finish last in this group, and they will actually create a lot of hype from from the viewers to actually see which of them is going to make it.
Yeah, when it was brought up, I wasn't necessarily sure if I was in favor or not, because I do think it's important to have it a very international feel. You don't want to have it just like one big party between Europe and Korea. But on the other hand, it does feel that every best of three should be a best of three that, at best is like a 65-35 or a 70-30. It is not that fun to like hype up a season finals and then be like, yeah, there's like a 5% chance, if that, of this person winning. So maybe some more play-ins to then qualify for the bigger event. It's not the worst idea, but I don't think ESL is going to change that. So let's just go ahead, at least not this year, not in the middle of everything. Let's just go ahead and move on, talk about Group C then. Before we do this, Kev, we actually had a lot of debate in the studio between what are we going to do, Group C or Group D. I said, I think we should do Group D, man, but maybe that's because I'm a bit biased and I do like Clem and I like Neep and I like Gabe, of course, and Time is, the best Chinese player we've ever had. I thought that group looked fun, but basically our production manager said like, that's going to be too much TVT for the mainstream, man. I'd really prefer it if you guys do Group C. Were you surprised when you guys got Group D and we got Group C, or did you think, it's pretty close?
Yeah, it's very similar, I think, and I understand that like there's less mirrors, so I guess that's usually preferred. So kind of did understand that. Not too surprised. I think both groups ended up being quite fun, though. No, I didn't watch much of Group C. I don't think I watched anything at all, but it seemed like you guys had a good time, no?
It could have been a really good time because it started off with the upset. Nice came out, guns blazing, took out Rogue 2-0. But geez, Louise, did Rogue look like a different player in that final series? Steadfast, your thoughts on Group C?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it live. I was at work, unfortunately, but looking at that, I was following on the live report update. You just pretending to work and checking your phone, and I see that Nice beat Rogue, and I was like, what is happening here? And I was all ready to type on the Battle.net forums, being like, oh, Protoss is so broken, best Zerg in the world ever to play, like blah blah blah, losing to Nice, and then yeah, I actually got a little bit more of a synopsis of the games, and it was like, okay, Rogue was maybe not taking it too seriously on that first go through, and then he like comes in first of all with a new build, that Queen drop Corruptor in the main, incredible stuff. But yeah, it was kind of like Harstem was saying, it was a little bit of a reversal of what we saw with Zest versus Reynor, where Zest was, a worse player on the second go through. It felt like a different player. It felt like the other way around, where Rogue was like, okay, we go Super Saiyan now. We beat this guy. It's easy.
Rogue honestly didn't look remotely similar to the Rogue that played its opening best of 3. It wasn't just that, Nice had a cool build and he did stuff well, but Rogue was just making a lot of very poor choices. He had way less drones than he was supposed to have. He made roaches in a moment where roaches make absolutely zero sense. He felt like he was playing the game with a handicap. He's like, all right, I'm going to try to win the game with the absolute bare minimum. I'm like, why is he always behind? Like, he shouldn't be behind. Safe to say that he fixed it in that final series. CuKu, were you happy to see Innovation do kind of well and have a relatively easy time in the group?
Well, I was really happy for Innovation. I was really surprised of the Rogue Knights because I actually couldn't catch that much of the Group C, but I was every time checking to see like what's happened, and I'm seeing like Knights beating Rogue 2-0, and I'm like, chill better overcharge. But after that, I'm seeing that Rogue is taking down is taking down and Knights in the decider game, and I think Rogue probably just wasn't expecting that level of play of Knights. And yeah, I'm obviously happy for Innovation, for for having a good time, because to be honest, like Innovation lately wasn't playing at at its best. So I was really happy to see it taking the first place in Group C, and after that, the quarterfinals and the semifinal. Yeah.
Did you guys expect a little more of our Juanito?
Yeah, I did, for sure. Thought it was long preparation time. TVT against Innovation. He looked good in it. Was a Super Tournament 2 where he looked good against Inno. Did he beat Inno in Super Tournament 2? I think he might have.
He did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So I was kind of looking forward to that. And then also, even though TVZ usually isn't a matchup he favors too much, he still tends to bring out some sick things. If he has preparation time. I think Juanito is a completely different player if he gets to prepare. And yeah, this time it wasn't meant to be, apparently.
So kind of piggybacking on that, best of threes. What do we think about, just as a side note, what do we think about turning the decider matches of groups into best of 5 in a situation like this? Just for the season finals, just because it is so big, and a best of 3, realistically, it can be a little bit weird. And like we saw even in the actual bracket stages where there was 2-0 leads, and then all of a sudden there was a reverse sweep.
Mm-hmm. Kev?
I think if, for whatever reason, I feel like if it's offline, that would be cool to just, I don't know. I kind of like longer series more offline, but if it's online because of the time difference as well and it extending the day, I'm not a massive fan of it. But the way that ESL is doing it now is with the one group a day. I mean, this should be a possibility, you know. It's just a matter of the time zones being kind of annoying, and the longer a series can potentially go, the harder it will be. Well, just on Korea, always. So currently not a big fan of it, but next offline event perhaps.
This might not be
Uh,
done totally. Sorry, CuKu, go ahead.
No, I actually like the idea. I feel like the decider game. It's always a game with with like it's always a very important game because obviously it decides which of them qualify out of the group, and I think making it a best of five, uh, would be a good call. But again, it's as Kevin said, it might be a bit tricky with the time zone, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think maybe with the format we currently have and the way that people qualify, I would only be in favor of that for the absolute final series of the group, right? Because like the
Yeah.
lower bracket match, it can get a little bit tough if we then have whoever is representing Taiwan or Oceania, even though those guys are good. If they go up against a Clam or a Maru, I'm not sure if I really want to see that in a best of five, especially not if it's online. But that begs another question that before we hop into Group D, were you guys surprised by that start time, like 4 p.m. Central European time? Because I kind of was.
I think they had an issue that day and they had to push it back, or is that a different day?
Day
That
one.
was only the very first day,
Okay.
but it was already scheduled to be late.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I thought that
don't get
usually
it.
they'd start at like 2. Yeah, me neither. Perhaps they want a bit more of the American viewers, so they start a bit later. That's the thing that's kind of understandable, but yeah, it makes it a fair amount worse for Koreans because they were
Mhm.
playing late into the night every single day, late into the night.
I'm
Yeah,
actually not sure what's the difference between like foreign, like to do it at 4 and at 2 Korean wise. Like at what time did those Koreans exactly play?
I mean, basically now the group starts at 11 p.m. I think in Korea. It's either 11 or it's between 10 and midnight. I'm pretty sure it's 11 if it's 4 here plus 7 to Seoul. So I find that that's just late, and there's no reason to really start unless you indeed want to be friendly to the American audience. But we have weekly broadcasts too, so it's not like Americans are going to wake up at 6 a.m. and be like, "Well, the season finals are happening." Like
Yeah.
in a weekend, you can maybe make a slightly strong argument for that. Then I guess they want to have consistent time zones. But I honestly think that if you have the possibility to very easily make these groups start at 1 p.m. Central European time, that should be kind of fine. I guess that does, yeah, then it'd be hard for Neep and Scarlet, but since there are way more Koreans than there are Americans, still seems like something you might want to consider.
Seems fair.
Honestly, it's just one of those situations where no matter what, you can't make everyone happy.
That is true.
It just sucks. And like there's a lot of people complaining in the feedback threads and like all that stuff. And it's like, oh man, like the Koreans got so screwed over. And it's like there's no solution. There's a global pandemic. We can't have everyone in the same area. There's people literally all areas of the globe. Like it's not there's no easy solution to this. Now, yes, maybe we can screw over NA a little bit more than Korea, but like then you have to have the same complaint of like, well, NA got screwed. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, but
you're not going to find everyone get happy.
the counter argument to that is though that there are 6 Korean players in the tournament and 2 North American players in the tournament. So I'm not sure if that's like, then it's still, you would be like, well, it sucks for the 2 guys, but it seems like it's more probably has to do with the viewership. I still think that maybe for the next season finals, it might be worth starting a bit earlier. I thought TSL started late too, but I don't think that any Korean losing is the fault of the time zone. Don't get me wrong, because these guys are used. They don't go to bed at 10 p.m. guys. They're not done. Yona is the weird guy out there that does go to bed early, but most of these guys they're actually completely okay with sometimes even playing their best Starcraft at 2 or 3 a.m. But I feel like if you can avoid it, if you can make it a bit just more fair for everyone, it makes sense. And on top of that, I honestly think when there is something as big happening as the European Championships of football, if you can start a bit earlier, it actually makes sense. Because just to assume that everyone that likes StarCraft doesn't like football, I think is kind of a crazy thing to assume. Now, sure, a lot of people like to stay home in pandemic times and just watch it on double monitor, but like if you can avoid clashing with the Super Bowl or a Conor McGregor fight or the European Championships of football, you probably want to do that. Maybe not everyone is into sports, but a lot of people are. So
Yeah.
I think that's one more thing to keep in mind. And let's go ahead and move on to Group D then. The D that was also covered by Harstem and Cats. We had Time, Hero Marine, Neep, and Clem. Time gets a lot of love from the European and some of the NA pro gamers too. And I guess he showed once more why he's receiving all the praise. Harstem.
Yeah, he looked very powerful. The series against Neep was great as well. He just looked scary, and he looked a little bit like how Korean Terrans sometimes just stomp over foreign tosses and foreign zergs. That's kind of when I was watching that first series, I was like, okay, like he's here, for serious business. And then after Hero Marine first beat Clem, then Time beat Neep. I was like, okay, Time has a pretty good winning record against Hero Marine, and yeah, it's just first place for Time. I don't think a lot of people would have expected it, but I also don't think it's a massive surprise here. I think that the biggest surprise in this group, to me personally, was Clem dropping out in last place. The series against Neep was a little bit unfortunate and a little poorly played. The series against Hero Marine was fantastic, by the way. Holy crap, they played an insane game. I think in 2000 atmospheres it was. Like, that was just all over the place. And usually I always felt like that Hero Marine was very good at leveraging like early game leads. So Hero Marine plays relatively defensive a lot of the time, and Clem would be the guy with the medevac on the map with his 2-gas opener, and then Hero Marine would be like Viking tank or like some Cyclone Raven, and then the counter push, 3-4 tanks, delaying his barrack slot, and bam, going straight with Vikings. And if he didn't win there, in my head was like, all right, Clem's gonna clutch it back now somehow. But this series showed that Hero Marine is very capable of winning these late games as well. There's late game positioning, and just his TVT knowledge seems just good, solid, and maybe even slightly better than Clem at times.
CuKu, Group D, lots of Terrans, mate. Come on.
Yeah, my heart was broken in Group D, Rotti. Like it's a bit tough to talk about the Group B when I saw that Clem took the last place, because I'm a Clem fan. I'm a Clem fanboy, and seeing that that Clem took the last place, it was a bit painful. I wasn't expecting Clem to lose against to lose against Gabe in a big tournament, because if you always put me to choose in a EPT Cup who's going to win between Clem and Gabe, I would go like, I don't know, let's say 70% Gabe, 30% Clem, or maybe 60% Gabe, 40% Clem. But if you put me to choose who's going to win between somebody like Clem and somebody like Gabe in a DreamHack season final, I would say that it's a completely reverse in the
Odds.
numbers, and in the odds. So I was really, I wasn't expecting it, and Time looked strong. Time looked calm. I wasn't expecting Time to take the first place, to be honest, but he actually did it. I was actually looking to some time replays when the replay pack got available, and I mean the man knows how to play Terran. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, he definitely does. Steadfast, when you saw the results of Group D, were you also a little shaken up?
Honestly, yes and no. Like everyone's going to be surprised seeing Clem drop out like this. We've been talking about him for months, and almost it feels like a year maybe at this point, where he's been the foreigner, like he is the one that we look at and we're like, he's the new hope. He's who we're penning like all our hopes on to take down the Koreans. So seeing him drop out in last place was a huge surprise. Big result from Neeb, which is then so sad for him to then turn around and get knocked out. But I want to talk about why Hero Marine has done so well. This is going to come off as a little bit tinfoily, and a little bit like armchair psychologist. But I actually think the best thing to happen for Hero Marine's career was Clem. Because up until that point, there wasn't really any dominant European Terran, Like there wasn't any European Terran who they approached a tournament and you're like, this guy could beat Zest. This guy could beat Rogue. This guy could beat Maru. That wasn't really ever a thing. Like people were like, oh yeah, European Zergs. That's always been a meme. Like European Zergs are just so good. And then European Protosses even. You have Showtime, you have like Mana, I'm sure there's a couple others. Something, maybe. It's a couple of Kevins in there.
He's not European, but still counts as a foreigner as well.
Exactly. But yeah, so there hasn't really been that dominant foreigner since like Thorzane, which is like 2012 was the last time he played, basically. Uh, so Clem has stepped up, and I feel like Hero Marine, I feel like it's that meme where he's like, and I took that personally. And he has stepped up in a way that we have never, I don't think people expected. And even his style of play has changed up in a profound way. Like it used to be, like Harstem was saying, like, okay, he plays pretty conservatively. Maybe he goes for a tank push. He does the same thing over and over, a little bit predictable. But now he is the one who is flipping the script and getting very aggressive at random times. And it's smart aggression. Like he looks like you were talking about Time looking like a Korean Terran. Hero Marine to me is starting to look like a little bit like a Korean Terran. It's actually really, really cool to see. And I think that has come at the existence of Clem and that kind of challenge that he's presented. And now Hero Marine has answered that challenge. And he's making a case for being the best foreign Terran.
Okay, I like a lot of things you said, but I don't quite think Hero Marine and Time styles are very close. And I think even though Hero Marine has perhaps gotten a bit more aggressive, I think whenever there was prepared tournaments, he always had prepared builds. And I still think a lot of his aggressive characteristics follow kind of stylistically out of what he likes to do. So he likes to initially defend and then based on good game knowledge and understanding of his position, tries to leverage that advantage. I don't feel like he's throwing in a lot of wild builds like someone like Time does more often. He doesn't proxy a lot, Hero Marine. He doesn't necessarily like getting the momentum at the start of the game. He likes to get the momentum after defending. He likes to counterattack more after something initially. And I think most Korean Terrans tend to actually, together with Clem and people like Time, like to have that initial start a little bit more. So I do agree that he does seem to be a bit more trigger happy perhaps with these counters, and he sees to throw them out a little more randomly. I still think he is very calculating in when he is aggressive, and his main preference style still seems to be more conservative openers, at least from the games that I watched.
Generally speaking, I would agree with you, but I will say he proxied a laser in the European finals when he never proxies, like ever. And then in a fair number of the ESL Open Cups, he's actually started doing like crazy Hellion Reaper pushes. And I'm not talking about him doing that as consistently as other players, but he's doing it enough so that you have to respect it. You have to respect it. It's like when Liquid Ret used to all in. You know, like if he would do it once or twice, he's like, okay, now I can build 80 drones for the next 70 games.
To be honest, when I'm thinking of Gabe, I actually don't. If somebody is telling me what is the first word when I'm hearing Hero Marine, is just a solid player. It's like so consistent. He's playing solid. He's playing proper builds. Like yeah, now and then he's maybe throwing a proxy, but like especially in TVT, I'm seeing Gabe like somebody like TY, with the time positioning as Kevin said, maybe playing trying the Maru style more usually in TVT, camping, going into Ravens, and waiting for the opponent to make the first move, and after that counter-attacking with like 30 Marines, the three Ravens on the other side, and after that putting some pressure on the opponent. I don't really see Gabe being a cheese player, like not necessarily a cheese player, but somebody who's proxying that often.
I gotta say, I agree. I love what you guys were saying, and I really love it. And I think you guys kind of are on the same page, but then still have slightly different views in certain directions. And I think that's fine. I love that you guys have your own opinion. What I have what I've been most impressed by Gabe is that there are certain games where I feel like, okay, the Protoss is already on 3 bases, he's still on 2, he's 9 workers behind. I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be some lame, uninspiring 2 base all in. But then he makes his move out, he still drops the 3rd CC, and then you feel like he's really committed, but then he's still hitting his transitions and he's willing to play the longer game where he's getting his 2nd star, but he's getting his goals, and then 2 minutes down the lane, like it doesn't actually look that bad. And I think it takes a lot of confidence as a Terran player to still be willing to play those games when your starts were not all that hot. And I feel like Gabe in the past didn't really have that, where it was more like if the start was bad, he's gonna end it immediately, or at least he's gonna try, live or die trying. I've been impressed by his ability to turn games that you feel like shouldn't be macro games still turn into macro games.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like he's found his confidence is the best way of putting it. Even a little bit of swagger in his play. Like it doesn't feel like he feels like he's ever behind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
I,
though we're praising Hero Marine here a lot, I do want to draw attention that probably the worst build I saw this tournament also came from him, which is what he did on Blackburn against Neep. Gabe, if you're watching, come on, buddy. This is not it anymore. He
What
was
was it?
like, okay, so he has this thing that he often does, and I am afraid that I am actually partially responsible for him doing this build because I tend to die to it. You know, it's one of those builds where he builds the extra barracks, and then rather than putting the tech labs on, he continues building units from factories and just starts regular marine production from the barracks. And it's relatively easy to scout, but it can hit pretty hard because that's like 6, 7 extra marines than you expect. There's a crap ton of factory units, and he tends to do it a lot if a DT drop from the toss doesn't go so well. I can't remember the early game in that game too well, but I just remember that he was light years ahead. Like we're talking up in workers ahead, barracks before his opponent even starts his Twilight, basically. Neep went 4-gate, Twilight 4-gas before he took his third because he was so afraid of dying. And then Gabe attacked into it and gets slaughtered. And then Semi dies to the counter attack. And I was like, oh, Gabe, that was a free win and you know it. And you got a little too excited there. And the problem is that he keeps playing against people like me, and I just die. I roll over and die against it. And then he tries it against his Neve. Neve has like 4 batteries ready. I'm like, I'm sorry, Gabe, it won't happen again.
So the last thing that I want to touch on there as well is what CuKu said, and I actually like that. Where I feel like if you ask any of us in a big tournament, all right, it's Gabe versus Clem. I am honestly pretty sure that we all pick Clem, right? Just because of all those amazing TVCs. Are we being unfair to Gabe? Because it's not like, oh, Gabe. We often say on the broadcast, well, Gabe can beat Clem. We have to stop that. Gabe is beating Clem. He's actually beating him very, very often.
Consistently. Yeah.
Yeah, are we not giving Gabe enough kudos for his TVT just because his TVZ is a little bit less spectacular than the TVZ of Clem? Is that it, or is there more to it?
Yes. That's
yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what I was thinking about. Like because when you think of Flame, you think of somebody who's attacking in 10 sides, having 8 bases, getting Ghost Liberators, NBCs in the same time, and I mean, now I'm speaking TVZ wise, and I think we more when we think of Claim, we think of that side of Claim what's playing TVZ, and we forgot that maybe TVT wise, Gabe can do it, and Gabe it's actually doing it.
Yeah, he is doing it.
I think we underrate TVT as a matchup for how it like rates in terms of importance of how good a player is, because it's not as flashy as TVZ. When you see a player who has the best TVZ in the world probably ever, and he's sniping banelings in 2 places at once, he's microing double drops in 3 places at once, you look at that and you're like, this is the best player to ever touch the game. The best player to ever. That's what you think. Your brain automatically does that. But then you like.
You're not wrong. You're like, oh my god, has anyone ever been as good as Clem as he has been in this weekly against Reynor? It's like, I don't think that's how it works, but my brain is telling me that's how it works.
Exactly. But then we don't appreciate how something subtle like Hero Marine never being caught out of position in a TVT. That's something that's harder to quantify and it's harder to appreciate. But it's something that he's very, very good at, and it's something that it's the eye test. You look at it, you're like, what Clem is doing is borderline impossible for a human, because it's just so good to look at, and for that reason, I'm so happy we have Clem. But yeah, Hero Marine is very, very good as well, and I think he deserves the kudos. So that's me giving him the kudos here.
Do you guys think that if Clem had a slightly different group where he would have played at least a Zerg and then maybe a Terran that suits him a bit better, do you think we're talking about a completely different performance of Clem? And are we still looking at the young Frenchman as someone that could have gone all the way and maybe win the season finals? Or all the losses that happened over the last month, the loss to Lil Bar, I think who was it? Another Protoss, I think, that took it down. Like, the losses have been ending up real quick for Clem. So, Kev, do you think it was just an issue of the group, or do you think that Clem overall is just a bit less on fire at the moment as he was 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Just less on fire, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't, even if you replay this group right now, or if you would replay that group 3 times on the same day, he's probably going to advance more times than not. But he has looked a little bit weaker recently. He's been dropping more games. Lost to Denver yesterday, and then also lost the parting. 2 days ago, and also lost the parting in the American. So Yeah, he used to win everything, and now like he lost the Dark, then he lost the Denver. It's like lose the 2 Zergs in a short amount of time. And I actually checked it. I looked up these statistics, and the last time he lost the series more than a best of 3 was in March against Ragnarok 2-1 before he lost the Dark, and now he loses 2 times in basically like a week and a half. So yeah, it's going a bit worse, and it seems like more people are capable of taking him down. I'm not worried for him. People always have a little bit of a dip. That's just how it works in StarCraft, unless you're Cyril in 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, in general, I mean, we saw Reynor also fall off a bit after his IAM Katowice win, and now perhaps Clem needs to eat dust for what, a week and a half and 2, and it's just a matter of refreshing the build orders and getting up to date on the theory again. His mechanics are godlike. He's faster than almost anyone I know. Like Reynor and Clem really are. Their speed is untouchable. Like it makes you not want to play anymore, no matter how good your theory is. Like they can steal your theory easily, but you can never steal their mechanics. It's ridiculous how fast these 2
Wow.
kids are.
We're getting deep. Can we end the Cobra? Wrap it up. We're ending on those words. Like,
words.
Clem's getting real smart. It's not gonna get better than this. No, I love the way you put that. I think it's fair, and I also love that you mentioned Cyril. I mean, people have accused me too many times of being a too massive Cyril fanboy, but I said while that year was happening and Cyril winning BlizzCon in the end, I was like, this is not normal, and I can't believe there were still people fighting over like, oh, was it really all that special? I was like, this is the most bizarre thing I've seen in RTS since I've been following and playing it in the last 15 years. The fact that someone just doesn't lose a freaking series for like 9 months while playing so many tournaments. You're never going to see this again, so just appreciate it. Applaud Yona for what he did, because you cannot hold anyone to that standard. And not even like, oh, Flash had, 68% in like, that's not the same as 100% over 9 months. I think you said it all really well. So let's just talk about the playoffs real quick then, guys. Let's move on, and this is obviously where things got very feisty. The Protoss hearts were bleeding and dying. Not a single green bar in Liquipedia. We kick things off with Maru versus Gabe. If you want my opinion first, and then you guys can roll with it. I thought Gabe played all right. Maru was just better.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
very. Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, okay. Yeah, I actually always felt that Maru and Gabe, they're playing a bit similar, but um, like they're playing both kind of the same style. Sometimes Gabe is preferring going for the Viking lead in the late game, when Maru, I never saw Maru going Viking lead instead of if he's playing against Meg, then yeah, in that case he's going Viking lead. But I always saw I saw Maru with Viking and Mice Ravens in the late game, and to be honest, especially the romanticide game between both of them, it was a banger of a game. It felt like Gabe at one point, he had some hope, he had some seconds, some minutes when, Gabe might do it, but in the end, just Maru looked stronger on the entire series. But the romanticide game, which it was actually a banger of a game.
F, Steadfast, anything, guys?
Yeah, well, I think it's very telling that if you look a little bit further in the bracket and you look at Innovation got bopped by Maru, and Hero Marine took a game. And not only that, I want to, it's so easy to be like, oh, Maru played so well, but his switch up in game 4 was absolute genius. Like he added, so Hero Marine killed him with like that 1-1-1 tank push where you add on a reactor and you pump out Vikings, and just because Vikings are so insanely expensive, you're committing all your resources off 2 bases, and it's a really strong push. It's a really strong way to play. And Maru was like, okay, you found a way to beat me. I'm just gonna counter this, and he builds an extra starport in the back of his base, and he pumps out more Vikings. Hero Marine hits with pretty much the same push again, and Maru just absolutely stomps it because he has like 3 or 4 extra Vikings, and like that was incredible to me. Like that actually broke my brain a little bit that Maru was able to do that in us. Like he's just like, oh yeah, no, you just build an extra starport, and it's like, Maru, like simmer down, like that, like please, like you can't be this good at the game. And it's so easy to like forget how good one of the greatest players of all time is, but he is that good, and he is still that good.
Yeah, that was the
And
Juggernaut
it's easily
game, right?
impressed.
No,
I am
that
impressed.
that was funny. I don't know if you
That's
saw
good.
that, Gav, or not. But
Yeah.
Ben was getting really excited. He's like, "Oh my God, Gabe's making the push, and I think could Gabe very well do it." And I'm just like, this is TVT, it's his matchup. I'm leaning down in my chair, I'm looking at the TV, and Ben is like, and I think I was like, Ben, he's getting obliterated. Okay, Maru's got 2 starports. He's got more Vikings and he's got more tanks. Why are we excited? I was like, Gabe's super dead. And then he's like, Kevin, you are right. He is getting obliterated. I was like, okay, man. No, I do think
For the
Maru.
show.
Yeah, I think Gabe looked good. I just think Maru showed us once more that no matter how good Gabe is, there are still levels to TVT. And I think Maru has just the absolute highest level you can have in that matchup.
Can I ask a quick question? CuKu,
Mhm.
what do you think is the main difference between Maru and Hero Marine? Because it felt like when I was watching Hero Marine versus Clem that he looked really good. Even and I think against Time he also looked relatively good in the late game. Just that the early games didn't go too well. What's the? You say they play relatively similar. I didn't watch the games, obviously. What do you think are the main differences between the two?
Well, I always feel like Maru is always having the better decision making. Like when, for example, I was looking to Maru Gabe replays when the replay pack was out, and they were playing like, yeah, pretty much similar, but every time when Gabe was doing a move, Maru was like, you are playing my style, man, like I know what you are going to do. And it was every time with like, a step in front of him, like always the tanks in the right position. He was, for example, adding BCs. Gabe didn't really add BCs. Like they are playing the same style, but Maru was like, you are playing my same style, mate, like I know what you are going to do.
Is it just decision making, or do you feel like, because I think one of the weak points of Gabe in general tends to be his micro. His micro is good, but it feels like it's not quite as flashy perhaps as some of the other top Terrans. But in TVT, the game is very positioning, and I find that to be Gabe's absolute strongest suit. Like the way he sets up engagements in TVP is really almost second to none. And his decision making feels very good. So, could you give like something specific where you feel like that Maru really shines more than Gabe?
Yeah, for, uh, for example, like Maru, like Gabe, yeah, it's actually he's having like a really good position. But again, like I was watching the replays, and like like Maru was always with like the better time position than Gabe had. Like I don't know, like Maru overall was just playing better the style that he was choosing to play.
If I can like add 2 cents before Steadfast, maybe you want to talk about it too. I feel that Maru's transitions in general were also just quicker. And it felt that whenever they both had a move, Maru's moves were kind of invisible to Gabe, while Gabe's actions were a bit telegraphed. So I felt that Maru kind of saw it coming. And on top of that, I don't think, like maybe tank positioning and like strategies, Gabe can be second to none to some, but when it comes to Ravens and when it comes to transitioning into more Sky Terran, Maru is better at that stuff than Gabe. Like Gabe is amazing, but when you give Maru 5 starports and a bunch of Ravens and the ability to maneuver around the map, Maru is simply better at that kind of stuff than Gabe is.
Yeah, I think for why I think there's a bit of a difference there is I think you have to back it up and you have to look at the whole picture. So what do we have right now in terms of the regions? We have I was mentioning before, there up until Clem came along, there wasn't really any global threat for Terran in Europe. And now there is. So Hero Marine gets to consistently practice against one of the best micro players in the world. But let's take a look at Korea. What do we have for Terrans? We have TY, the best strategic player in history. We have Byun, the best micro Terran player, probably, maybe in history. At the very least, he's definitely up there. We have Innovation, one of the best mechanical, one of the best macro players in history. So Maru, he gets to consistently practice against all aspects of the spectrum. Whereas Hero Marine, he really the only player who is at that insanely high, maybe like if you were to give them like the power grid or like a rating out of 100, only one player in TVT who's maybe at that like 97, 98 out of 100. Whereas you have like Thermal, you have Soul, they're in the 90s, but you wouldn't put them at that. And CuKu, of course, is at that like 95, 96. But
Close, a bit older.
You gotta keep him humble, Steadfast, otherwise he's gonna ask for a raise, and we want to get rid of them. We don't want to keep him on board, yeah.
Come on.
But yeah, no, you have all these insanely high level players, and it's just you get that I could say better quality practice over time. And Hero Marine doesn't get to go up against the strategic mastery of someone like a TY on a consistent basis. And I think that's why Maru has been able to excel so much.
I mean, I do like some of the points you make. Overall, Korea does just have the stronger Terran players, and that's been a thing for a long time. Let's move
They
on.
don't take the fastest
TLDR.
one too.
TLDR, Gabe had a good tournament, just ran into Maru in the quarters, and Maru is still a god in TVT. Next up, Scarlet Innovation. We don't have to go on super long about it, but was obviously exciting with Scarlet taking the 2-0 lead. I just want to say one thing, and then I'll let you guys take the word. It was really funny. First day, we had a request by Zombie Grub to please get healthy food. Well, in the first 2 days, so we got healthy catering at the event. But you know how nerds are. They're like, "Oh, this is great," and then after 2 days, like, "Let's get burgers." So on the day 3, Wadi's like, would be really awesome if we can just get McDonald's today. Yeah, like, all right, we're going to get McDonald's. Obviously, the timing works out that right when Wadi sits down to cast his TVZ, catering lady walks in with bags of McDonald's. We're going to town. Wadi put in a proper order. And that series went on for a long time. Obviously, 2-0 Scarlet, 3-2 in the end. And some of you guys at home and that are listening to the show might think like, oh yeah, Wadi's like sometimes a grumpy guy on his stream. I can tell you guys that if you ever interact with Wadi in real life, I have never seen Wadi pissed. He's honestly just a really sweet guy. He does his thing. He's very easy to get along with. He always has a smile on my face. Wadi was fucking steaming after that best of 5. He was so pissed that he had to eat saggy McDonald's food. And I just thought it was really funny that after knowing Wadi for 10 years, I finally seen Wadi angry. Well, yeah, let's talk about the actual games. CuKu, the TVZ between Scarlet and Inno. What did you make of it?
Yeah, overall it was, I think, the most excited series that we got until the final. Like seeing Scarlet up 2-0 against somebody like Innovation, like everybody was like, "Is she doing it? Is she doing it?" And after that, Innovation is taking the first game, is taking the second game, and in the end, Innovation is doing the reverse, and maybe a result what everybody was expecting to Innovation getting the win over Scarlet, but I mean, I don't think somebody was actually seeing Scarlet getting being up 2-0 against somebody like Innovation, which is just Innovation. And yeah, it was, I think, for me it was the most exciting series until the grand final, which is basically a 7 games game. And yeah.
Have anything to add?
That was a 4-1 type of series. I thought Scarlet, the Light Shade, holy crap. And then I think almost every single game she probably could have won. Even Romanticide is where she had that fight with the lurkers, right? Near the 5th base. It's like, she had 16 lurkers and there was like 5 tanks or something. It's like, oh, actual pain, actual pain. And was Lightshade where she had legit like 90 workers against like a 55 worker Innovation. It's like, jeez. It's actually painful to watch. And yeah, the 2000 Atmosphere games wasn't as close because the bench killed like 30 workers or whatever. But even Lightshade and Romanticide, it's like the early games are so good. Their creep spread is back on point, by the way. Holy crap, those first 2 games were insane. That made absolutely no sense. She played so clean and very safe every single game with the Spores, except on 2000 Atmospheres, the only game we actually get Cloak. Or maybe one more game was with Cloak. I thought that series was crazy. I loved watching it. Such a good series. Very high level play. And I think that entire series, when you watch something like this, like this is what you want to show people, high level TVZ. This type of stuff can be so much fun to watch. Actually, I had a great time watching that. I really did. It's a fantastic show.
That's fast.
So I think this series was one of the most nostalgic series for me in a long time because it reminded me how heartbreaking foreigners can be. It was obviously Canadian, North American. It is so nice to see someone like Scarlet doing so well. And once again, she had a really, really great tournament overall. But that was really, really sad, especially on Romanticide. She's up 2-1. She has the chance to put it away. She is in a massive lead, and Kevin already talked about it. Harstem already talked about it. The lurkers at that 5th base. She builds, like, I think it was at first 19 lurkers. A couple of them get picked up on the way, but like she has so much potential to win the game. And then she just kind of sits them there, sort of threatening the base, nothing to protect them. And then they just get stimmed on by this massive concave of Innovation. Innovation played really well, by the way. Like we're talking about Scarlet, but he played really, really well to come back from a 3 or a 2-0 series deficit lead, and it really was in kind of unwinnable positions for I would call them unwinnable positions in a couple of those games. Or like, like you look at the win probability, you're like, that's an 85, 90, 95% win probability for Scarlet. So then as the stim came in and the bio just crushed all those lurkers, I just felt like the wind knocked out of me, and I was like, oh, okay, this series is over. And like obviously there was still 2,000 atmospheres, but it felt like that was like the gut punch that I remember when foreign players, before we got Cyril, before we got Reynor, that was the gut punch you got, where it was like they make a deep run into a tournament, you're believing, and then they run into a top Korean, and they have them on the ropes, and then it just falls apart. I actually, now that I think of it, now that I say that, I remember there was a series between a Laser and Hydra where exactly that happened. Yeah.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Cobra, I have a quick question. Do we have a little FAQ at the end of the show? And are people already able to submit questions, like Patreon supporters in the Discord channel? Can they already ask us something? How is this going to work today?
Okay, so people can go ahead and send us questions. That would be at thepylonshow.com. There's a button that says Patreon Q&A, and if you click on that, it'll take you to a landing page. It'll look something like this right here, and you can go ahead and just send us questions. This is recommended right now so that we can get them ready to show on screen before we're actually there. I'll drop the link in chat a couple times.
Because we're going to talk about a few more best of fives. But if you guys are Patreon supporters and you do have a question to either me or Cobra or any of the guests that we have on today, make sure to start doing that so we have your questions ready for the end of the show. Then let's move on for us, as Cobra is showing us, or showing you guys how to do it. Time vs. Rogue, I think one of the more underwhelming best of fives in the entire playoff bracket, so I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. My main question is, Kev, this is now the second time I watched Time in the playoffs. First against Solar, now against Rogue in a relatively big online tournament. Why can Time look so good some days and then just get completely bopped by Korean Zergs?
I think it's kind of in his style. He tends to be slightly over-aggressive, and if you have someone that is slightly too solid, and the Korean Zergs tend to be a little bit better than him, he just kind of falls flat, and it looks really silly.
Yeah, Steadfast. We keep it at that.
Yep, same thing. It's sad because he looked so good, but it's happened before. I think it happened in 2018 BlizzCon, where he had one of the best performances against Maru. He like 3-2'd him in the first match, and then Maru came back in the decider match and 3-0'd him, and it was like, all right.
Yeah, I also think that this is not a lot to say about the Time Rogue series. Rogue was just definitely the better player in that series, and that's pretty much it.
Now let's talk about a best of five that was slightly more entertaining, especially the first two games. I was like, what the hell is happening? Because I thought Reynor is on the warpath. Reynor is going to show up and eliminate some nerds and win this tournament. But geez Louise, Dream really pushed him in those first two games. And obviously the Lightshade game, I actually think that Dream should have won it at one point. CuKu, how did you experience that?
To be honest, I didn't saw the live shit game, so I'm actually I actually have no clue what
You're
happened.
useless,
in that
CuKu.
game.
You're fired. Steadfast, talk to me about the Lightshade game.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Kevin, sir. No, it was a really great game. Like it felt like Dream had a lot of opportunities, and I was kind of looking at that series in retrospect, and I was like, as Game 4 was closing up, I was like, this should be us going to Game 5. I felt that way, really, truly felt it. And it was just such an impressive performance, and that's what I was talking about a little bit when I mentioned how Dream looked kind of like the Dream of old. Is that Lightshade game, and I think what was the second map? Second map was
Oxide or something?
Oxide, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was approaching the best of 5, like so systematically. Like Lightshade, he looked really good, just all of his play, and then Oxide, he had this amazing timing, this 2-base push, and Reynor, it kind of felt like a fighter who got into a bad position in UFC, and he got into a hold, and Reynor is doing everything he can to just punch his way out of it, and he just absolutely cannot escape. Dream is just he's locking up the leg, he's slapping his arm away. It just looked. And now, obviously, Oxide's a bit of a Terran favored map, especially when you do a push like that. But he just looked like so complete, and I was thinking to myself, man, this should be 2-0 right now. What is it was a series that could have very easily gone a different way, and to be honest, I'm very glad that it didn't, because we got the finals that we did. But it was a really, really good performance from Dream, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in the future.
Yeah, I know it was a very long game, but did you see at least the end of the Lightshade game between Dream and Reynor?
I saw big parts of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
skipped the
I feel
replay,
like at one point, if you put Maru in that spot, if you put Clem in that spot, I was like, they're gonna win
It's
that
over.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, at some points the resources looked so freaking good for Dream. I think it was like 5k, 5k against like 1k, 1k or something like that. And he'd been grinding that as well.
Mhm.
It wasn't like, yeah, he's been and that freaking nuke, man. What the
nuke,
hell?
yeah.
That landed, in a different world. That landed twice already. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I was like, which nuke? I was like, didn't no, okay. The one, the nuke almost, the little nuke that could, but didn't
Yeah,
quite.
it was. Yeah, that was a ballsy move by Reynor. Holy crap! Right clicking that goes like his life depended on it. That's a lot of money in Broodlords that he would have lost. But yeah, it's
I
what
think
it is.
overall it was still relatively convincing in the end of it. But yeah, imagine a world where Dream does win Lightshade and then Oxide plays out the way he did. He's up 2-0. And obviously then it would have been a proper best of 5. Dream already said in one of the interviews, he's like, I just don't want to play Reynor. He got to play Reynor, looked really good, fell short in the end. But I think overall Dream can be pretty proud of his performance throughout this tournament. CuKu.
Yeah, so to be honest, I wasn't really expecting Dream to make it in the quarterfinals. So overall, I think I think it's a really good success for him.
All right, let's talk about the semifinals then, guys. First one, I think we're gonna keep it short. Maru versus Innovation, where Gabe, I feel like made Maru work for it, even though I didn't think Maru was gonna get eliminated. I didn't have that feeling. I just felt that Maru was a bit too good. Innovation said after he won a series against Scarlet, I just hope I don't lose in too much of an embarrassing manner. I don't want to say it was embarrassing, but it really was one-sided, wasn't it, Steadfast?
Yeah, I mean, well, when you go in with that mentality, you're going in playing to lose, and it kind of showed. You can never say that losing to Maru is an embarrassment, because he's Maru, but it wasn't the series wasn't pretty, and it was the expected result. But when one of the players thinks it's the expected result going into it, you're going to have a kind of ugly series, and that's kind of what we saw. What I would have been really interested to see is that Innovation going up against Hero Marine. I think Hero Marine would have beat him.
Yeah, I actually, I believe you. Cav, did you see any of that? Anything you to add?
Nothing. I didn't see anything there. No.
DVT?
About what Steadfast says, like I actually didn't know that Innovation said the fact that I hope I'm not going to lose in a very embarrassing way. But to be honest, the mentality of I'm probably going to lose, but at least let's don't lose 3-0, let's lose 3-1. I think that's just not the right choice. Like if you go to win, and if you don't, you see what happens, I guess. Like I don't think that's the right winner mentality.
Especially against Maru, right? Maru doesn't really need a lot to work with. So if you're going in with a defeated mindset, even if maybe there's that voice in the back of your head that's going to tell you it's going to be hard, at least hope you can push him to the limit. Let's not talk about losing in embarrassing ways. The other semifinals also wasn't all that great, but hey, I did say the one line, if the semifinals aren't that great, the finals often are, and I think that's true for this tournament. Rogue Reynor. I had the feeling that Rogue was up to his old tricks, and he's like, hey man, I'm still Rogue, one of the best players of all time, and I don't really care who this foreign Zerg is. I'm going to come in with a couple of, in my opinion, a bit uninspiring builds, and I'm going to try to get the job done. Wasn't happening, not on Reynor's watch. Kev, were you disappointed in that semifinals?
Well, I'm a big Reynor fanboy, so I actually kind of liked it. The kid hurts my heart a lot. Every single time I watch one of his series and he makes it a little bit too close, I'm like, geez, messaged him afterwards like, buddy, you just lost me another 2 years of my life, because I watch his series very intensely, a bit too much as a fan perhaps at times. So yeah, I was, I didn't mind it too much. I was pretty happy with the result. I'm like, this looks good, Reynor. Let's go to the finals.
Steadfast, I know, as maybe a slightly more neutral, passionate Starcraft fan. If you see Rogue Reynor, you expect fireworks, right? You want to see two guys that push each other to the limit. I didn't really get that vibe out of Rogue that day.
Yeah, I always think of Rogue as a bit of like a drunken master when he plays StarCraft 2. Like he's very fluid, and you look at some of his play and you're like, oh man, like what's he up to? And things kind of like the Nice series where sometimes it looks a little bit silly, but then you see the other Nice series and you're like, okay, there he is. So for us to have like, and yeah, it was a little bit uninspired, especially the first 2 games, I think. Game 3 was pretty good. But even then, Reynor made him work for it with like it didn't make sense. It was way less roaches, and he still made him work for it. And it's like, damn, Raynor's really good at this video game. But the one that really impressed me the most was Game 4. Game 4 from Reynor right there was such a. It is such a. The thesis of who Reynor is as a player. You put him in a bad situation, and he makes a miracle happen. Like. It felt like he was like, I think the gold base was later from Reynor. Like you had Rogue mining from a gold base for a while. Like it felt like Reynor should have been behind for most of that game, but instead you have him pulling off miracle after miracle after miracle, and he's down like I think at one point he was down like 30 supply when both players were sub 100 supply. And like for him to then come back on the same composition, like he had like the +1 carapace. It was just a very weird game. But Rogue created that chaos, and Reynor thrived in it regardless. And that was just so impressive to me.
I mean, I don't need 25-minute games, but I do want to see that kind of Blackburn stuff. Like, that's what I want from Rogue and Reynor, with Reynor having an impossible hold, Rogue really pushing him. I was just hoping that we saw a little more of that throughout the entire best of 5. CuKu, did you catch any of it?
Yeah, I actually catch the 2K game. Like, to be honest, from now on, when I'm seeing Reynor being behind or being in like kind of a bad situation, I'm just thinking to the Lambo Reynor game, what happened in the DreamHack, the Romanticide game, which is actually the decider game, and I'm actually thinking to that game, and I'm like, man, this kid can do it. I don't know, it feels like you can put Reynor in any kind of situation. Is there a high chance that he's going to find a way out of it and make a miracle happen?
All right, that obviously brought us to the grand finals. I think in a really, really, really good grand finals. It made me forget about those semifinals real quick. We can kick things off with you, Steadfast. Maru and Reynor went to distance. Feels like Maru and Reynor are giving us what Sero and Maru never could. I know it was an online series. I know it was late for Korea. But sometimes, F all that. Let's just enjoy great StarCraft 2. And I think they gave us great StarCraft 2.
Oh, they really did. This series had it all. We had cheeses from both sides. We had some unpredictable builds. We had Mech return to competitive play and look really good. We had Reynor getting justified in his hate of Blackburn. We had that nice quick 2-0 lead where Reynor looked like it honestly looked like we might have been going to a 4-0 after the first 2 games. And then Maru's like, no, we're fine. And then Blackburn happens and you're like, oh, okay, well, all of a sudden this is a little bit uncomfortable for Reynor. He just lost to Mech. He looks kind of unpracticed against it, and he admitted in the post-game interview that he was. And then Game 5 rolls around, and you're like, well, this is actually a must-win because we've got Beckett Industries in Game 6. And Reynor loses on 2K Atmos, and you're like, okay, we can kind of turn this series off now. Beckett Industries is coming up. And then Maru does the most confusing, probably worst strategic decision we've seen in...
That's the NFL equivalent of the Seahawks throwing the ball at the 1-yard line in the Super Bowl. It's like, why are we 2-rexing on Beckett? But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it looked bad, and it wasn't just that it was a bad decision strategically. It was doubly bad because Reynor had consistently been going pool first. Like he'd done that in I think like 40% of his TVZs throughout the tournament by that point, and it was like, do you really want to risk it on this map? and it gave Reynor enough of an advantage that. So Beckett is okay. I need to talk about Beckett a little bit. Beckett is a weird map, right? If you get the map into the middle, if you get creep spread into the middle of the map, you can actually make it an even TVZ. If the fights are always in the middle, it's okay for Zerg. It's when it gets pushed back to those horrible locations around the third base, around the fourth base, that's when it gets bad. But because Reynor got that early advantage, he was able to make Beckett look balanced. And then we had Romanticide, and one of the most epic conclusions to a series we could have ever asked for. This was one of the, you were talking, I think Harstem was talking about series to show people. This is it. This is the series you show people to get people hooked on StarCraft 2 and just, get them addicted to that crack that is StarCraft 2 that we've all fallen for.
Kev, I know that you already said before you're a big Reynor fan, so you like to see him win easily. I have to mean, obviously I'm in the same boat. I'm a big fan of the kid, get along with him great. When I was watching his IEM run, truly loved it as a StarCraft fan, as a Reynor friend. But I almost felt that of all the wins, the grand finals was like the least satisfying to me, because I never for a split second had the feeling he was going to lose against Zest.
Yeah.
While in the other series, I did have that, and that makes the joy of victory a lot bigger, right?
Yeah.
If you are a Reynor fan. After these first two games, I agree with Steadfast. I'm like, it's going to be like a 4-0 for Reynor. The internet is going to be freaking annoying. This is like the best score kind of timeline, though. 2-0 easy. 3-2, oh my God, what's happening? And then he did close it out in the end. You must have enjoyed the hell out of that finals.
Yeah. It was the Romanticide game also was a little bit scary. It's like I think at one point Maru forgets to siege his tanks for like half a minute or so on the left side of the map, and if that hadn't happened, like it wasn't even necessarily looking that bad for Reynor, but it just felt like Maru kind of was in the zone again, and he looked good earlier in the series with Mech already. I'm like, oh crap, here we go. And then when that happens, and it's so annoying because when it rains, it really pours against Reynor. He gets one little win, and then all of a sudden there's links in your third base, and Ravagers are piling down another tank. It's like, oh, more Banelings into my fifth. And it's like, geez, like it's so annoying. Like you slip up once, and he just doesn't stop. He just freaking relents, and it felt like he was just punching Maru again and again. It's like he's already dead. Like let him go. And it actually was a great last game. It was great watching it. Wearing both hats as a StarCraft fan and as a Reynor fan, it was more satisfying than the Zest series for sure. It was great. I love watching him. He's so entertaining to watch him. Just his playstyle is so aggressive and fun, and he makes things work that sometimes it feels like it shouldn't, but just pure persistence with his units looking for openings. It's great StarCraft. It really is.
CuKu, I know that you're a big Terran fan, but you're also a big Reynor fan. So how did you enjoy your grand finals?
To be honest, I think I think it was the best grand final that we could have asked for, score wise, player wise. I think it was just the best that we could have hoped for. And I know that I was with the kids in voice, and we were like, guys, it's 2-0 for Reynor. I think I go back to ladder, because I mean it's probably going to be a 4-0, and after that they are like, CuKu is 2-1. I'm like, okay, but Reynor is going to take that one. CuKu is 2-2. I'm like, okay guys, but right now Reynor is going to learn from his mistakes, and he's going to win the other ones. CuKu is 3-2. Okay guys, let me actually press F10 plus N, and let me actually see what the hell is happening in this final. And it's getting to 3-3. It's getting to the decider game, which is Romanticide. I was a bit impressed by how many times Maru chose to play mech, and actually kind of bring mech back to life. And also Gumiho is back, so probably we're gonna see some more mech in the future tournament. So yeah, I think overall it was like just the best that we could have hoped for, best final, and yeah, really enjoy it.
You happy to see a lot of mech?
Not really. I'm not a big mech fan, but I think it's really good for the people to actually see some different diversified styles, because usually you see only bio, and again bio. So I think
I thought it was entertaining mech though, guys. It wasn't boring mech. Like there have been mech games in the past where I'm like, people are like, yeah, mech is viable, and I was like, why do we try to make this a thing? Like this is gonna push everyone away. But I thought the way that Maru played mech, I was like, okay, I can appreciate the art of this, and I can get behind this.
I'll say Blackburn was not the kind of mech we want to see. Romanticide, that was the kind of mech we want to see 100%. And I think it's that, so I call it flex mech. where you have like 8 factories and you get the full upgrade spectrum. You get all, like you get your Blue Flame Hellions, you get your Magfield Accelerator, you get your Drilling Claws, you get your smart servos, and like you're constantly switching back and forth. And there's action everywhere. There's consistently stuff going forward. I think we actually saw a perfect example of one game the kind of mech we don't want, and one game the kind of mech we do. And it was cool that we did get to see it, because even when you see that kind of suffocating mech that we saw in Blackburn, if you see it very rarely, it can be okay. And since it gave us the series we got, I'm more than happy with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, as long as it's not that kind of mech when you just wait for two timing at 11 minutes with 200 supply, and you hope that you go on the other side, you seize your tanks and you kill your opponent. Seeing some cyclones with Widowmine, some mobility, playing mech like you play bio. I think that's a fun way to play mech.
Well, guys, this obviously means that Reynor is the grand finals champ of the DreamHack Starcraft Masters semi-final, and he's now seeded into the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2022. I know that we were all kind of in a lot of tension. Is Reynor going to make it to Katowice or not? Guys, he has locked up the slot. He's safe. Obviously gets $10,000 as well for winning this tournament. That was a proper 2-hour discussion over this tournament, by the way. It's kind of going over all of it, trying to show love and light on love the games and love the players. I think it was quite enjoyable. I've got a very simple question to wrap it up then. Steadfast, is Reynor once again the best StarCraft 2 player in the world?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
CuKu, is Reynor the best StarCraft 2 player in the world?
That's a really tough question. Like right now, yeah, like judging by this result, yeah, but yeah.
Overall, and you don't have to go by this result. It's not about the tournament, it's about your feeling. If you want to say no, you can say no.
I think so. Like I think so at this point. Winning Katowice, winning DreamHack is on final. Like I was thinking, because Clem form was really good like 2 weeks ago. Right now Clem is not in his base shape. But yeah, I think so. I think Reynor is the best at this moment.
Harstem, is Reynor the best player in the world?
Yep.
Well, if all 3 of our experts say that he is the best player in the world, then I guess we had a good tournament with a very worthy champion. I guess that's going to do it for us talking about the DreamHack SC2 Summer Season Finals. I really have to change the name because Masters 2021, ESL Pro Tour, Shopify, Coinbase has joined us. Real quick, CuKu, Coinbase is now supporting StarCraft, yes or no?
Yes.
Steadfast, happy with the news?
Yeah, people are being like, oh, well, it's pretty bad for the environment. It's like, everything is. Do you know what we do? We sit on our computers for 12 hours a day, 20 hours a day. And yes, there's blah, 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 whatever. But this is good news. There's money coming into StarCraft too. Like, we're not at the privilege where we can be like, oh man, it's UEFA. We can be like, yeah, there's a million other sponsors lined up. Like, we get to choose between Coke or Pepsi. Like, this is good news.
I gotta say, when it comes to an American company that's listed on the Dow Jones or whatever it is, the New York Stock Exchange, this is a big ass company. Whether you're a big fan of crypto or not, I feel like you kind of got to be happy with this news. Like, there are a lot of sponsors. Like, it's not like Shell is sponsoring us where we're like, go fossil fuel. It's like, no, it's Coinbase. I think it's pretty good news, right, Kev?
Yeah, I think so too. We could have had way worse people sponsor us from the crypto community. So
that too. I mean, let's not go even in there. But yeah, Coinbase seems like a pretty legit company, guys. I actually, believe it or not, I actually bought some stock. You guys can call me the CEO of Coinbase if you want. Like, I've got at least 10 or 15.
You got a decent stake in there.
Yeah, I'm expecting that stock to go up a little bit. Now they are getting involved with the greatest game ever made. I was happy to read that, and I'm sure that we'll hear more about that from the ESL guys and Apollo in the future. Cobra, do we have any questions yet lined up?
Yeah, we do. While I am pulling those up, why don't we read off the $100 tier?
Well, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not like you guys. Like, we only give love to the big dogs. I'm a man of the people, Cobra. I'm just going to go through a lot of names. Obviously, big shout out to all of you guys that have been supporting the Patreon of the Pylon Show throughout the last few weeks. We know that it's been bumpy. We know that it's been inconsistent. And we absolutely promise you that we're going to do our best to make it a very consistent thing and make it perhaps even better than it's ever been before. Big shout out to Maker Shane, Jerry Wang, and Cody Furious87 for the $100. Binker for the $50. Videk, Eric, Bob, Jaco, Aaron, Will, Smartin for the 25. Diego, Creator, Robert, Jareth, Keith for the 20. And Kyle and Lord Philliam for the 15. Thank you guys so much for the ongoing support. And Cobra and I and the rest of the team will make up for lost times and more than that. As this is a lot of names. I cannot possibly go through all of them. I do see Maney in there. So big shout out, of course, to all the $10 Patreon supporters as well. Love to see it. We hope to make that list bigger and bigger throughout time. For now, let's dive into a couple of the FAQ questions, because in 45 minutes, I have heard, I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, that football's coming home and people are excited for it. So I definitely want to be done by then. Let's take a look at our first question. Who makes a better pizza, Gabe or Reynor? Gumiho and Classic are returning this month. Do you think they will find their old form? Any thoughts on them? I know Greece is mandatory military service. Greece? All right, there's a lot of questions. Let's start off with who makes the better pizza, Gabe or Reynor? CuKu, who do you think makes better pizza?
Reynor, of course. There is like I don't like the Italian taste, Rotti. There is no way. Like Gabe, it might put some pineapple on pizza. Like no way. There is like no way, Like so I
Gabe
go
is
for Reynor.
Italian.
What? Gabe?
Gabe is part Italian. Yeah. He has that Italian heritage in him. Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I find new stuff right now. Actually, I will still go with Reynor, but I didn't do that about Gabe.
Wait, are you saying he's been lying to us this whole time
Yeah.
with that
No.
German flag? Oof.
No, he's got
That's a
he's got an
scandal.
Italian. He represented Italy at the Intel Extreme Masters event, the Olympic event we had 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Because the German qualifier was really hard, but he also had an Italian passport, and Reynor was too young. So he's like, I'm Italian, guys, and he actually represented Italy.
Whoa. I actually have no clue. That's mind blowing.
Steadfast, who makes better pizza, you think?
That actually does blow my mind a little bit, and that kind of changes my answer a little bit. It's like before it would have been a hard yes for Reynor. Now it's like a soft yes. We've seen Gabe's pizza making ability. We haven't seen it. Reynor still needs to prove himself. So soft yes for Reynor, but yeah, I don't know. With the skill ceiling of these players, I think it's still got plenty of room to develop.
I'm gonna go with a hard yes for Big Gabe. Because Reynor has been here, and Reynor is lazy, okay? Reynor doesn't make food. Reynor pretends he makes food, but he doesn't. He's like, hey man, should we have pizza? And that means that I have to take it out, and I have to warm it up, and I have to bring it to him while he sits behind his PC. Then he doesn't even bring away his dirty plates. I'm gonna go with Gabe. I've seen that man sweat, hangover or not. He's putting in the effort, making pizzas for people with stay-at-home stirring cups. 100% Gabe. And on top of that, Reynor doesn't like the idea of garlic sauce and sriracha, dipping your pizza in it. I don't know what's wrong with that kid. Great sauce combo. Gabe, you've got my vote.
I'd like to change my vote.
Yeah, me too.
All right, thank you, Alexander, for the question. We had a second part of that question that I now kind of missed, but we were basically talking about some of the returning players, Gumiho and Classic. Kev, excited? Believe that they'll be back on top real quick?
Classic, yes. Gumiho, I don't know. Hard to say. Because Gumiho had a style that, in my mind, was already falling off a little bit when he retired, and he didn't feel, or when he went to the military, and didn't feel quite as strong anymore. While Classic seemed to, Classic is very creative, extremely solid. Yeah, Classic to me is going to come back real strong, similar to how Hero has already been coming back real strong. These guys are so scary to play against. It felt like Gumiho. Yeah, I don't know. I really like Gumiho, and I think he's good, but he never was at that same level anyway in my mind as Classic was. So I'm gonna go with a big yes for Classic.
CuKu?
I'm excited for Gumiho because Gumiho, I feel like he's the type of guy who is just going to came back and I don't know, make a new style to play Mac. I don't know, and I'm actually excited for it. And yeah, also for Classic, I think it's great. Like TY and Zest, I think they are going away, and Classic and Gumiho came back. It's like, we give you these two, and we get away these two. So, sincere.
That fast. Agree.
I actually think that Gumiho is going to be legit. I had the chance to. He played his first tournament, I think, the ESL Open NA. I had the opportunity to cast some of his games. It felt like the Gumiho we remember of old. Little bit. He beat some really good players on the way. He beat Estrella. He beat with a ping disadvantage. He beat Haas. He beat Golden, which is not a huge deal, but it felt like when I was watching him play, he was playing like it honestly felt like he was playing faster than like it felt like the game speed was accelerated when I was watching him play. Like he was just so all over the place, and I think that style is actually going to work really well. People think of him as just the mech player, but he's actually he's a very competent bio player as well, and he plays very very quickly. And if you can't, it's kind of what we were talking about. I think was it with Dream or it was somebody, but that basically if you can't answer their style, it wasn't Dream. If you can't answer their style and respond in kind, they're gonna just run you over, and that's what it feels like Gumiho is trying to gear himself up to do, and I'm very excited to see it. I think he's gonna qualify for GSL on his next run, and I think of Reynor, Hero, and Classic, I think 2 of those 3 players, I'm not sure which, will end up in, I'm gonna say the round of 8 in the next GSL. I'm gonna make a very bold hot take, and that's my prediction. And the other one makes it to.
Wait,
Makes
who
it
did
to the
you
round
say?
of
Reynor?
You said
or
Reynor.
sorry, what? That's not what I meant. Sorry, Hero, Classic, and Gumiho. If
2 out
Reynor
of
makes
3
it,
is
that's
top 8.
yeah.
Okay,
It's a very hot
one
take,
of
but
the. I can see one of the 3 for sure, and I'm also leaning a bit more towards the Protosis. I think 2 out of 3 were pushing it a little bit. I have to admit that at first I'm like the same as Kev. I'm like Classic. Oh yeah, he's gonna be back fast. He's gonna be top notch. Gumio, not quite the same level, but that's also not totally fair because Gumio did really have his proper runs also in the GSL. Apologies. And did sometimes really show us that he's not just a decent Terran, that he can really be of the upper echelon. But I do kind of hold Classic to a slightly higher standard than I hold Gumio. But I hope you're right, Steadfast. I hope that Gumio shows us a lot of things to get very excited over. Do we have it? Thank you very much, Alexander, for the question, of course. Cobra, do we have more?
This is from
We
Polly.
do have more. A question from Polly. There wasn't a new patch for some time. How would describe this state right now? How would we? Is it damaging the game? Does it lose appeal and reduce creativity of finding new playstyles, builds, or is there still room for changes? Or does it actually benefit it by refining certain builds and meta? CuKu, we haven't had a patch in a while. Are you happy with this? Yes or no? And the rest of the question.
To be honest, I think the game it's doing all right. Like, yeah, I can like some teams can be maybe a little bit better, but I think it could be like the best patch we could have stayed stuck with, to say like this, because to be honest, everything seems kind of fair. Again, some things maybe they can be a bit better, but overall I don't think they are damaging the game. Maybe sometimes it feels it feels a bit boring, but I'm pretty sure like in time we'll might or maybe we're gonna get something new and make the game feel a little bit more fresh again.
Is that fast?
Unfortunately, I have to strongly disagree with that.
That's okay.
And it's not even at the pro level necessarily. We do see a lot of staleness in PvZ specifically. But I think the worst part of, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room, Void Rays. They're too versatile in the early game. Not necessarily at the highest level, because we do see Queen Walks very successful against them. But when you get down into the slums of the lower leagues, Void Rays dominate everything in that matchup. And if you can't put together a very, very competent Queen Walk build, you're going to get dumpstered by them. And, yes, the game needs to be balanced for the pro level, but you also need to make it fun for the lower leagues. And Void Rays, they're just not fun to play against. They're suffocating, they're difficult. It's the same thing as that turtle mech style that I was talking about on Blackburn, and why it's very important that it can only be viable in certain situations is because if you shun your lower 98% of the ladder, you're gonna have that ladder shrink and shrink and shrink over and over, and then new talent coming in it's hard to come by. TVZ, PVT, they're both in a great spot. It's just PvZ with the Void Rays.
Yeah, I kind of
You're
agree
also
with.
allowed to disagree with You guys can all disagree with each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay.
I think the problem with PVZ is that I have is obviously the void ray is annoying. I'm not even entirely sure if the void ray by itself would be such a huge issue if it wouldn't be followed up by the carrier. In that case, Hydra's could perhaps trade with it okay. I think it makes it very difficult in late game to micro against the carrier, especially at the lower levels. And another thing that I dislike about it is that it seems like the best answer right now for the Void Ray camp is that Queen all-ins are really good, which means those are smaller maps will be good for Zerg. And the moment you make larger maps, it's kind of gonna become a camp fest a little bit more. So I feel like it's very difficult to influence the meta through map making, which is the thing that I feel like sucks a little bit. Imagine that Void Race kind of got removed. Queen Walk still would be very good, except then you'd have Tosses just playing more Oracle openers again because they're safe. Right now, that's not really a possibility. If you make the maps longer, you're going to see more Void Ray camp. If you make the map shorter, you're going to see more Queen Walks. That is the main thing that I find slightly annoying. PVT, I don't completely agree that it's super fine. I think the inconsistency there and the reliance on early game build orders and advantages being leveraged with more mid game timings isn't quite ideal. I do like the matchup more in general, but there still seems to be a little bit too much volatility in just the early game. You get like your Hellion drop against your Twilight openers or your Stargate against the Hellion opener, and this is pre-decided before getting any real information. And it's such a huge impact on the game. I'm personally not a massive fan of that. On top of that, an added note is maps like Oxide and Jagannatha
Gotta
make the
go.
early game. No,
Check
sorry,
them
sorry.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I thought you meant that I had to hurry up, but yeah.
No, no, you
No,
don't
he
have
would
to
have been
hurry up.
doing this.
I am sick and tired of Romanticide, Oxide, and Jagannatha. And I think the reason why we see a lot of similar games and the game is getting a bit still is because we've been playing on those maps for too damn long. But sorry, Kev, I hijacked your point. Go on.
Yeah. I think mainly Oxide Jagannatha, it's impossible for Terran to scout even the first text structure. On Romanticide, at least you can still see the Twilight in the wall or the Stargate in the wall. But on Oxide and Jagannatha, opening Reaper just makes no sense, and getting scouting information is only possible if the Protoss forgets to deny the Reaper in front. So I think that is actually a dumb mechanic, and the Reaper should always be capable of being able to see some type of tag. It doesn't necessarily need to be able to see like if like a romanticide type of vault to me is fine if it's three by three buildings, but not being capable of seeing whether it's Stargate or a Twilight just makes the early game way too gambly and reduces, I think, the overall fun gotten from it.
I love the answers, guys. I think all three of you guys made some very good and valid points. I personally am of the opinion that I don't think it's hurting the game at the moment, but I do want a patch just because I want the players to be a bit more creative again. And I want to see some new stuff because after I'm casting like 20 games of TVZ in a row, I'm not even that excited to cast 5 more the next day. And TVZ is a really good matchup where normally we did always see a lot of variety, but it's a combination of the same patch for quite some time with then certain maps that we've played for too damn long. It is starting to make it a little bit still. I don't think at this point it had really had any negative impact on StarCraft 2 whatsoever. If this, however, would continue for 6 more months of Void Rays in PvZ, 6 more months of the same pushes in TvZ on certain maps, then I do think it becomes a real issue. So I hope that it's going to be addressed in the near future. But I think all of you guys made very solid and fair
Yeah, I
points.
also I like I also think that right now at the moment when StarCraft I feel like it's more about the mechanics because
Mhm.
everything it already feels because that's the same maps, the game is the same one because it's kind of the same pitch, and right now it's everything about the mechanics, and I don't really feel that much strategy anymore.
Yep. Last but not least, I normally don't really interact with things that I see in Twitch chat because there's a lot of things that are incorrect in Twitch chat. But people need to stop saying that Blizzard doesn't support the game anymore. Blizzard said that they won't release any new paid content. That means no new skins, no watches, no new co-op commanders, no new Nova missions. They never said there won't be a patch, there won't be a map pool. Like we already went over this when the recent patch and the recent map pool came out. Stop that. Yeah, okay, it's less than we all want it to be. Let's be real. I'm not going to sit there and be like, I love everything that Blizzard has done, because that would be a lie too. But there is a very big difference between paid content and basic game support. Do not confuse the two. Okay, Twitch chat. That's for all of you guys out there. Do we have another question from the Patreon, my good friend
We
Cobra?
do.
Yes, we do. Well, this question is for you, Harstem. Hey, Harstem, regarding Sclam Meteoric Ascension, how similar is Team Liquid support and coaching style to a traditional team house that is popular in Korea? Do you and the rest of Team Liquid have times each year where you all come together to practice or hang out?
Well, ever since Clem joined, COVID hit. So we had, well, I mean, when we were in the team for like a month, we all went to the Netherlands and we boot camped at an office of a sponsor back then. Now we have the Team Liquid, the Alienware training facility in Utrecht. So I think the moment COVID is kind of overish and we can travel, we're definitely going to be getting together a lot. I think that was actually very helpful for Clem as well, that boot camp. It was helpful for all of us. I think we all improved there. But it's kind of hard to do everything remote.
I like the way that you started that out. It made it sound like Clem joining Team Liquid was the cause of COVID. Like, we can't prove that it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. So.
No one has prevented any evidence that that's not the case, guys. Like, there is a possibility. It was a big rise after all. I mean, that does kind of shift things in the universe, doesn't it?
And you know what?
Right.
Clem is kind of he's kind of starting to slump the last month or so. COVID's starting to go down as well. I don't
We're all
know.
getting vaccinated. Clem's getting worse. Coincidence? I think not.
Oh my god.
All right. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you, Kev, for the great answer. Red Gunner Guy. How do you build a successful project/business even when it doesn't make money? Pylon shows or Twitch or YouTube channels. How do you get success faster? Well, I think a lot of us can answer that in very different ways. You know what? I want to hear CuKu's answer at first. CuKu, you started streaming. Yeah, go ahead.
No, say.
No, I wanted to say you started streaming StarCraft 2 in a time where people would have probably all told you, don't stream StarCraft. What are you doing? You got to stream a different game. And yet you have really turned your stream already into something. You may not be the biggest streamer on Twitch yet, but I feel like you're really doing well. So why don't you answer the question first?
Like, I don't think there is like fast success, or I don't know. I feel like it's everything about the consistency and to like basically just don't give up. Like I know like everybody hears like this, like don't give up and stuff like that, but I always thought that the difference between the guy who who actually make it and the guy who nobody knows nothing anymore is just that the guy just keep the consistency even in bad days, even in good days. He just keep showing up, keep being there, keep working hard, and at one point everything just change. It might change better than you might ever imagine of. Like for example, Rotti, when I start playing StarCraft, I wasn't imagining being at the Pylon Show. So I think it's everything about the consistency and how much and how bad you want it. And I know that I'm still at the start, and I'm willing to to go ham to get what I want basically. So I think it's everything about the consistency.
Kev, you started off a long time ago as a pretty bad Warcraft 3 gamer, I may say so. StarCraft 2 came around, you were a lot better.
Awful. Don't sugarcoat. I was terrible, atrocious.
When StarCraft 2 came around, you were a pro gamer, but I think it's safe to say that at this point you are so much more than just another pro gamer. So I'd love to hear you answer this question.
Yeah, I think well, there's a couple of things that obviously there's many roads that lead to Rome, but for me, I think it helps that I never really tried to actively make enemies too much. So it's very easy to pull favors from friends, which definitely can be underestimated. And this can really take the shape of anything, whether it's a friendly word of advice, which usually is very valuable. Like certain people just know more about certain topics, whether that's the platform, Twitch, YouTube, setting up a Patreon or whatever. But also things like tech. Like if you're starting a stream, it's nice to have like someone that you at least have a positive experience with before that can help you. Like, hey, how do microphones work? Like is this headset good enough? And he'll go like, no, that's actually not good enough. Or maybe you'll say, yeah, that's fine. And for now, this will be good. And he can help you create a very nice setup from something. Then on top of that, like I agree with CuKu, consistency is important, and it's just a little bit of luck as well, right? Like you're gonna need to get a little bit lucky at some point, whether you get a big rate or YouTube starts,
Yeah,
getting
but
the algorithm.
but I think consistency and hard work can put you in places when luck can find you.
Exact. Yes.
Oh.
Yep. That's the perfect. Yep. I was gonna make that point.
All right. Nothing else, Steadfast? That's it?
Oh, no. I have a whole lot to say.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, I 100% agree with CuKu. And so this is tough, right? Because it's if you just throw yourself into it, it's going to be hard to maintain that 100% consistency. And I actually feel like I'm very well equipped to answer this question because I only recently started really experiencing a lot of success with my own personal stream. And when that started was when I said to myself, I am not going to miss another ESL Open Cup. I'm going to cast every single one of them that I can do. And when that started, that's when my success actually started becoming consistent. And it's only in the last about 6-7 months that I've actually really, so to speak, popped off as far as like doing so. And that meant like when I'm tired, I don't skip that day. I keep going. When I don't want to, when I'm a little bit low on energy, I need to find something to get myself that energy. And now it's important to note that there is a difference between just blindly throwing yourself all in and throwing yourself all in because you want it. And CuKu said that as well, which is another great point. You have to want it. You have to really, truly want it. And if you're not doing this for the right reasons, if you're not in here because you love the game, or it's anything, right? Any passion project, you need to really, really want it. And if you do, you will eventually get those results. But it is going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of grinding. It's going to take a lot of disappointment too. There's going to be a lot of times, like I applied for Twitch Partner, I got turned down 7 times before I got it. And it's very easy to be like I've never applied for something 8 times in my life before. Literally never. I've never kept at it like that before. And it's showing. People are I'm not at Rotterdam's level. I'm not at Harstem's level. I'm not at CuKu's game level. That's for sure. But like it's one of those things where you have to really want it, and you have to be patient with your success. And if you're not willing to be that, if you come in with a sense of entitlement, you're gonna fall on your face, and you're gonna look like a bit of a fool. And people are gonna see it too. Like if you genuinely have passion for something and you really, really want it, that shows through in your work. Now at the same time, it's not enough to just do all of what I said. You need a good support structure in your life. You need people who are in your corner. If there are people who are like, man, why are you doing this? You're gonna fail. Fuck those people. Those are the worst. I've had people like that in my life, and actually part of my success is cutting one of those people out. And since I've done that, yeah, the results have been extraordinary. And I'm 31 years old. This is the first time that I've actually like really done something like this and stuck to it. And yeah, I'm sad that it took this long, but I'm so much happier that I've done it.
I love all the answers, guys, and I think all of you have made great points. But I love how originally it's like, how do I get quick success? Well, the lesson is you probably not, mate. You're going to have to work hard for it. Now, obviously, every business or every journey in life is different. But if you're talking about anything in StarCraft 2, quick success is honestly not going to be a thing. And I think, if anything, I'm really surprised by the success that some people had that started StarCraft a lot later and still had a lot of things going. So if I look back at the journey that I went through, which is basically from 2005 onwards, first Warcraft 3 each and every single day, and then StarCraft 2 each and every single day, it is really hard to find quick success. And StarCraft 2 is simply not the game or the scene that if you think you're just going to make a channel and then make some money out of it and have a successful business model, no, it's the wrong game. It's the wrong scene for that. That doesn't mean that you can't be successful anymore in StarCraft. You absolutely can, but you are going to have to work hard. I love all the speeches about consistency and putting in the effort. It is obviously important to keep in mind as well that it's not always about who works the hardest. You want to find a good balance as well, because doing a 10-hour stream where you're a zombie is obviously going to be worse than doing an 8-hour stream where you have a smile on your face and you're enjoying yourself. So don't always feel like you have to go that extra mile just to outdo someone or outdo your own personal standards. Make sure you find a healthy balance in between all of it. But success doesn't come too easy and too quick on Twitch. I actually think a really sick example. I mean, since all of you guys share their personal story, it's like obviously I used to date a lovely lady called Yuna. She lived in LA and she was doing her own IRL streams. It was like all right, but it wasn't going all that great. And at one point, she's like, "I'm a programmer. I think I can make cool stuff on Twitch." She showed what she was making of. I was like, "That's sick." I was like, "But how the hell are you going to show this to the world, right? It obviously takes time." There it goes back to what Kev said. Don't make enemies if you don't need to. If you can make some friends along the ride, they can obviously help you get your content out there. And if you think it was quick success, it wasn't. It's basically someone who locks themselves in their house, codes 20 hours a day, barely sleeps, makes a lot of videos. In the end, 100 people see it, but then 300 people see it, then 800 people start seeing it. And after a year of ultra hard work, now it's like one of the biggest streams on Twitch where 8 to 10,000 people watch it on a daily basis. That was honestly about as quick of success as you're ever going to be. And it still took a ridiculous amount of work and a lot of, but everything you guys said, consistency, same days, hard work, don't give up, be persistent and be nice and reach out to people that obviously, like along the road can help you with your journey. So I think all together, guys, we gave a great answer. Do we have any other questions, Cobra?
Sorry, do you mind if I just add a little bit to that? I think that's really important is something that I glossed over, and be nice to people. Be nice to people, be appreciative, and be humble. Like don't get arrogant about it, Like nothing is handed to you. You have to work for everything. This is a meritocracy and eventually you will get it. But yeah, be appreciative and be nice and be humble.
Mm-hmm. And like you said before, also don't feel too entitled. I think a lot of people, when they start finding their first success in any business, but definitely on the internet as well, they start feeling entitled. Like, hey, no, this is me now. This belongs to me. That's honestly just not how it works, because there's a lot of great individuals out there that work hard and also do their best. And if you start feeling entitled, feeling that you're better than other people, well, it will come back to haunt you real quick.
Don't get comfortable.
Cobra?
So that's actually everything for this week. However, there are a backlog of some questions that we haven't had the right guests on to answer. And so some of those I have had to hold off. Like there's some Brood War questions that if I ask you guys, it would be an injustice to you guys and the person who asked the question. However, some of those we can pull back and it would be appropriate to ask. So we have 2 of those, and then we're done for this week. We're going to close questions after these next 2. This one is from Hyper Turtle.
Hyper Turtle is asking us, first of all, thanks, of course, mate, for supporting the Pylon Show on Patreon. ESL and DreamHack have been taking an active role with choosing map rules, have been teasing the idea of running map maker events. How else would you like to see them get involved in design choices? Should they also be participating in balance changes? I'll leave that one up to you, Kev.
I think it's very difficult because I'm not quite sure if ESL has the expertise or DreamHack has the expertise to really do any big design changes. Should they be participating in balance changes? I think the best way for them to participate in that is by hosting some type of forum or a way to communicate effectively with Blizzard, and in what way, shape, or form that is. If you want, I can give a little bit of a backstory of how it worked over the years, if we have the time for that.
If you can give us a TLDR version, it will work.
Yeah. So basically, it started initially in the first 4.5 years, 5 years with David Kim, that a very limited amount of players had contact to David Kim, and it felt that perhaps at times those were a little bit too influential, and the thought process of the designers was very difficult at times to understand as well, where the reasoning wasn't nearly as strong as I think it became in the past few years. Then we had a period where David Kim started becoming kind of active in hosting these balance discussions, and we at least had a way to talk to the guys in charge. It still felt like it sometimes was difficult to really get a good discussion, though. Like no, it. Oh crap!
I can
It
hear
felt
you.
difficult. Yeah, sorry, I clicked away the camera. It felt difficult to getting like to really get the answers you wanted or something like that. It felt like David Kim always listened, but he never really shared what was on his mind. Even though, yeah, you have all this expertise in like the pro gamers, and not all suggestions are going to be good. But if you pose a problem, I think we can get to good answers. And I think a good example, the first time we truly saw that, was with the Adept and the way the SCV and the Adept and the Marine and the Adept interacted. There was a suggestion out of Liquid Bunny, Terran player back in the day, who said, "Hey, why don't we just make it so that no other interaction in the game really gets affected by this change, but at least the Adept doesn't two-shot the SCV and the Marine anymore." That was a very elegant solution to a problem that was pretty difficult to fix, I think, without impacting the rest of the game. And I think perhaps that could have been used earlier. And then we went into a period where this type of communication was very common, especially when Monk and Skippy were there. We would get asked pointed questions. Hey, how we have this problem. How would you suggest we fix it? And they'd very often respond back with, "Okay, I understand your point of view, and this is how we see it." And they wanted a lot of examples, a lot of replays. And then that was it until, I guess, last year, start of last year. And since then, the communication with Blizzard has been, at least for me, basically non-existent.
But it's safe to say that I think we all share the same opinion here. Yes, we'd love to see ESL be a little bit more involved, reach out to pro gamers,
Yeah.
but also casters, other community members, give our feedback. My main issue for a long time, and I know that not every pro gamer is fond of this, but sometimes be a bit more adventurous, please, with the map pools. Like the map pools, they kind of look the same, they feel the same. The colors. I want to have a bright purple map and a bright yellow map and a bright green map, just to give it a very fresh feel for the viewers and for the casual players. This may not be the most popular opinion among all the pros, but let's stop playing it safe and replace like Cloud Kingdom with 3 other Cloud Kingdoms that just look slightly different. This has to stop. Like this game has been out for 11 years now. We need to be a little bit more adventurous to keep people engaged. That is one thing that I really stand by. But I think you did a great job answering that question, Kev. Let's go ahead and dive into that final question then, Cobra.
This is from Paragleber.
All right. Shout out to that lovely individual. Do you think that maybe one day there will be esports tournaments with age groups like 40 plus? I like where this is going. Maybe in a few decades, some of us will still have the passion to compete, but in mechanical games, we just won't be able to keep up with teenagers and their reaction times. And will Artosis win the Grandpa SC League? I'm just going to answer that question because I'm the oldest motherfucker out here. No, Artosis will not win the Grandpa SC League. That's going to be yours truly, Rotti, even though I'm worried about Todd. At least in SC2. In Brood War, I will not mess with Dan, and I never will. Yes, I do think that this is going to be a thing one day. I don't think it's ever going to be the biggest deal. This is not going to be mainstream, but I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be a 30 plus or a 30 plus competition in certain games. It's kind of just like a different version of region locking. But at the end of the day, competition is fun, but you want to make sure that it's actual competition and not, yeah, you can participate, but you're going to get absolutely destroyed by this kid who's twice younger but 4 times faster than you. Everyone loves some healthy, friendly competition. I think it will be a thing one day. CuKu, 18 and younger competitions. Should it be a thing already?
They are already.
Yes.
Well, they're already, I think, the under 18 tournaments, and to be honest, to a tournament with age restrictions from the people who are like, I know, 10, 30 and older and 14 and older, I think would be honest a great thing. And maybe, you know, how you said, Rotti, in the previous Pylon show when I was here, you know, the winner of the grandpa competition with the winner of the younger competition, a show match, and who else? You know, the baby competition and the grandpa competition makes sense to me.
Steadfast, other than a caster, I know you're a pretty creative guy as well. You're always looking for new angles and fun stuff to run. Is this something you've already been playing with?
Well, unfortunately, there's not very many over 40 StarCraft players yet. There are a few, but you know, it's not all that common. So you know, if your parents are bored with COVID, just be like, hey, get them into this. Uh, but I do think that the main draw of something like this would come from probably the players themselves. So, for example, someone like Rotti in the next, 8, 10 years, as players start to get older, that's when, and they're already got that established fan base, then you can have those niche tournaments where it's like, okay, who would win between, all these old hat players that have been around. So I think in its own right, it's a little bit tricky to generate hype, but if it's already people who are a little bit known, then you can definitely make it happen. And I do want to talk about as well the younger leagues. It's really awesome. I think it's Alpha X who runs the
Yeah.
under
18.
is it under 18 or
No,
under 16?
no, it's under 18.
Under 18. Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure we can link that on the Wikipedia. And then another group that gets kind of swept under the rug a little bit is female players. We have Zombie Grub, who's run a bunch of tournaments, the Banshee Cups, which is pretty awesome. And like that's another thing where you mentioned it, where it's not necessarily the mainstream thing, but it's really cool to have competitions exist for groups that are maybe not going to present the highest level games, but will still draw a little bit of a crowd. So it's really cool to see that. And I would be so excited to see, like, even right now, I think like an over 30s league would be pretty interesting. And there are some pretty good players who would fall into that category, like Demaga, Braddock, our very own Rotterdam. Like
The Muslim.
the
Goody.
Muslim's over 30.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's just been bald so long that like I just
Jesus.
in before I get canceled for
Cuss.
Koss. Yes, Koss is very old. Yeah, like, and they've been around since like 2008. Even White Raw, maybe he makes an appearance for this tournament. I would be just so excited about that.
I like how Steadfast earlier was like, yeah, be sure to always have friends around, and then he throws Cass and Ben under the bus within 20 seconds of each other. Yeah, Cass is very old.
Pretty old.
I'm speed running career destruction,
All right. Well, I think that was a great answer. I think the TLDR is yes. I think it is going to be a thing. Maybe like Steadfast said, maybe like it's 40 right now is a bit hard. But yeah, I would like to see more tournaments having like age restrictions for the younger guys or for certain just players from certain regions to stimulate the talent and make them a bit more motivated to go up against each other. But definitely something for the oldies as well to get passionate and excited over. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I don't see why it shouldn't be a thing. That's gonna do it, guys, because in 9 minutes, football's coming home. So I'm gonna give all of you guys a closing segment. Of course, big shout out to Cobra. We'll get back to you soon. Let's start off with you, CuKu. Where can we find you? How much are you gonna be playing? And when are you finally gonna be 6.1k MMR? Because Roddy's waiting.
Okay, so you can find me on Twitch /TV CuKu. When I'm going to be and also on Twitter CuKu with K. I know that a lot of people are asking me why I'm on Twitch with CuKu with C and in game and on Twitter with K, because was taken, guys, was taken. Like CuKu with K was taken on Twitch, and my heart is still broken because of this. So please don't remind me anymore. And when I'm going to be 6.1k MMR, give me 1 month.
Oh, I
Ooh.
love that. In 1 month, we're coming back to you, mate. CuKu, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope you had a great time. Kev, like I said in the beginning, Ranked Roulette is back in full force. Hype videos. Roddy is embarrassed. But what else is happening and what's in store for you in the upcoming weeks?
Well, just the regular. I'll be streaming a little bit, twitch.tv/Harstem, and I'll be uploading my daily videos as always. Like you said, Rank Roulette is back every Sunday at 5, unless something goes wrong. Then at 7 or at 8 or at 9. It tends to be at 7 or 8 or at 9. It can be difficult to get everything going, especially if you're working with me. I'm not the fastest at sending files over to my lovely editor, but yeah, if you guys check that out, that'd be great. And yeah, big shout out to my man Cobra for having me on again. Whenever there's a Pylon show, he'll always message me like, "Hey Kevin, you want to be on this Pylon show?" I'm like, "What time does it start, Cobra?" And he's, "Never mind, it starts 2 a.m. or something like that." I'm like, I'm asleep by then. And then whenever there's the European version, I always get the invite, even though I denied so many times before. I always appreciate it. It's a good time. So thanks so much for having me again, buddy.
Thank you so much for joining us. It would not have been the same show without you. And that, of course, goes for our last man as well. Steadfast, our beautiful Canadian passion lord. thank you so much for joining us. First of all, any shout outs? What are you going to do in the upcoming days? And where can we find you, of course?
Well, yeah. First things first, shout out to Cobra Venom for reaching out to me and asking me. I literally had woken up exactly 1 minute before I received the message. It was fate, you know? So I checked the Discord message. I think that was about 25 minutes before we went live, and, just bing, bang, boom. Got on here. So really happy to be here. Shout out to all you guys. You guys are just consummate professionals. It was so fun talking to you. And it's nice to not have to fill time for the entire duration. I'm normally solo casting, so yeah, that's that's always pleasant. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/steadfastsc2. I always announce when I'm going live there. You can check out my Twitch channel, steadfastsc. And then YouTube is Steadfast Space SC2, because I figure the best way to try and grow your brand is to just make it as confusing as possible and really difficult for people to find you. I find that people, EA really hit the nail on the head with a sense of pride and accomplishment. So I tried to echo that in my branding. But yeah, I'm on a 54 cup streak of casting the ESL Open Cups. I have not missed one for 50. I'm up to 54. The goal is
From
100.
all three?
All three. Yep.
Oh my God, mate. I'm happy that I did 58 weeks of Europe in a row. You're a sicko.
It helps because that's only like a 2-month period or something, or 2.5 months. It would be longer, but I had to refinance a condo, and that took priority. But yeah, and then I'll be covering something called the Exxon Cup Open tonight. It's just a little open cup at 9 p.m. EST. And then after that, immediately after that, I'm going to be casting a best of 9 between Cure and Cyan on my channel at 1 a.m. EST.
All right. So, guys, follow the channels of all three of them. CuKu, really fun. Terrence streaming around 6K MMR. Kev, obviously, always battling it out with the very best in Europe over at his channel. And Steadfast, always casting. Guys, once more, thank you so much for joining us. Cobra and I truly appreciate it. And, of course, the rest of the Pylon Show. And that does make it time for me to one more time address what we already kind of addressed in the beginning of the show, but a lot of you guys weren't here for it yet. Things have been a bit rocky for the Pylon Show, and things are going to change a little bit. We already touched up on a couple of things. The most important thing is please follow the Pylon Show on YouTube, because that's where you're going to see a lot of clips. That's where you're going to see a lot of the uploads that will take place from here on out. Other than that, Artosis wrote a big message in the Pylon Show Discord. The TLDR of the very long message is just, he loves the Pylon Show, he loves Starcraft 2, but the man is incredibly busy. He's got 4 children, he's casting multiple different video games, he has his own stream, and he just feels that he cannot really do justice to the Pylon Show the way he wants to do justice. So Cobra reached out to me, Artosis reached out to me, they asked me if I wanted to kind of take over. Now, I don't see myself as the new main host of the Pylon Show, but at least for a little while, we're going to do our absolute best to make this show as good as possible and to make all the Patreon supporters obviously happy and satisfied. I know that Cobra also uploaded a YouTube video. Cobra, is there anything else you want to add to that speech? Anything else you want to tell the people at home?
I'd like to let people know that you and I actually have a meeting later this week to discuss some plans for upcoming content and how we want to design the next couple months of content. And we'd like to hear from you guys, and especially our Patreons. So we'll be sending out a poll that we've already got a pretty good draft of to you guys in the next couple days. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that's about it. We'll see you next week.
Well, then I would like to ask one last thing. Obviously, we are
sure.
going to have a little chat about it. We are going to try to change things a little bit as well. Just restructure a couple of things, because there are still too many basic questions that newcomers of SC2 have that should be easy to answer. So we're going to try to just make the show of the structure of the show very easy and flowing. We had no time to really change anything for this week, but we are really going to do our best in just making everything as easy as possible for you guys, as fun as possible. And we're obviously aiming for a lot of new guests as well. Like I said, I'm going to try to get some of the newest StarCraft 2 streamers on, so people don't feel like, oh, it's the old boys club, which really is not a thing, by the way. But if you know what I love, by the way? Tell me, guys, as our final end. If you do something long enough, right, you're part of an old boys club. But if you leave, you're a money-hungry, grabbing bastard who abandoned SC2. So, like, I have lived long enough to become the old boys club now? Is that what it is? Kev, help me out here. What happened?
Yeah, and I see you've already been transitioning into poker, so I guess the next stage has already started. The
From
greed
old
is
boys
strong.
club to leaving the scene abandoned. Can't win over here. Yeah, the TLDR is that we just want to make the Pylon Show really fun, consistent, awesome, make it a passionate project for all of us, and yeah, that hopefully the entire StarCraft 2 community can identify with. Ain't that so, Cobra?
That's so.
All right, well, then I'm done, and you can say goodbye to the lovely folks.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care, guys.
See you next
Bye-bye.
week.
Hello and welcome everyone to This Week in Starcraft, the segment of the Pylon Show where we talk about the tournaments that have just happened and of course any upcoming events in both StarCraft 2 and in StarCraft Brood War. Let's jump right in to This Week in StarCraft. Of course, every week we feature 3 major events that we're trying to shed some light on. Notably, this time we get the ESL Cups, the Global StarCraft League, that's the GSL, and the World Team League, which is coming right up. We'll talk about those 3 first. The ESL Open Cups have been happening now. Of course, you can see the cup points listed there on the far side with Zest, Solar, Clem, Cure, and Hero Marine leagues above the rest of the field, with a few people winning some firsts and seconds just behind that. But let's look at this week's results. This week in the ESL Open Cup Korea, Cure defeated Zest 3-2, taking him all the way to a Game 5. I'm sure it was a great match, cast, of course, by Gemini, Renegade, Steadfast, and Inu. The ESL Open Cup EU with Hero Marine defeating Showtime 3-2. Good work from Big Gabe here, taking back his nominal cup. Interesting, Neeb got to the round of 8 in the EU bracket because look at the NA bracket. Oh boy. We'll put NA in quote marks yet again as Cure takes out Parting for another big win there in the grand finals. Wow, Hero Marine making it to the semifinals, Max Pax making it to the semifinals, and unfortunately, North America with a pretty weak showing as only Trigger and Cham able to make it into the round of 16. Oof. Of course, the GSL also underway, the premier Korean StarCraft tournament here. Groups A and C have now played. Last week we saw Group B, but Bunny and Rogue taking out Percival and Byun in Group A. And then, as everyone predicted, in Group C, SOS and June taking out Maru and Ragnarok. Wow, that's wild. Group D happening, I believe, tomorrow with Trap, Special, Parting, and Solar. So enjoy the hell out of that. That's going to be fantastic. And of course, our final featured event is the Doyu Cup World Team League. The WTL has this finals ready to rock and roll starting this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be covering these team-based games, starting with the teams in 4th and 5th place, the Africa Freaks and the Shopify Rebellion. Winner goes on to face the team in 3rd place. Winner goes on to face the team in 2nd place. So we'll do 2 of these games on Saturday, 2 of these games on Sunday, and I'll be casting that event over on my channel, alongside a number of other casters on their own channels, Wardy, Crank, Alpha X, Maddox, Into the Inu, Stephen Curry, Legend K, a bunch of folks. Hey, there's a familiar face. We got some exciting tweets about some things that may or may not be happening there. The OSC, King of the Hill Weekly, of course, continues every week. We're doing it on Tuesdays now rather than Sundays. Mana won 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, he got knocked out this week or had to leave this week after about a five-game run. And this week we had some more results, but we'll talk about those next week. Copa Hyperion, a regular tournament here, bi-weekly, organized by Break the Wall Esports. This is open to all Latin American citizens and residents, with Eric taking out Paco Mike in the grand finals 3-0. A clean sweep for Eric, with Jim Rising and Ryu taking the 3rd and 4th places there. This, of course, cast by the Ducklings and by Anki in Spanish. The Battle of the Americas, our Saturday weekly cup, open to North and Latin American players. This week, Latin America making a strong push, with Jim Rising and Eric both defeating their NA opponents in the semifinals. And Eric again taking a victory there, 3-0 in the grand finals. course, the Exxon Cup Open is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, streamed by the amazing Steadfast, with, Zest joining this tournament and cranking his way through. Dave Testa, Riser, James Baxter, and BioIce. Oof. That's, Zest might have been a little bit of a match for everybody in that tournament. The Alpha X Apprentice Season 7 is underway. Group B happening now with Eroj Fire, the young Frenchman, up on top, and Trigger, the up-and-coming Canadian superstar, there in second place. So keep your eyes on the Alpha X Apprentice, cast over, I believe, on the Alpha X Twitch channel. The Validity Team League Season 10 drawing to a close here very soon, with CSO Esports and the Art of Warfare going into the grand finals. Those finals are going to be cast by Chicken Man. So go to Chicken Man's Twitch channel and see when that's going to be. The Executor Torneo Brasileiro de Starcraft 2, Kelliger took out Eric in the grand finals. I mean, Eric took a game off of him, which is exciting. But man, if you have a Brazilian tournament and you don't exclude Kelliger, he is still leaps and bounds the best Brazilian player out there. And of course, the DreamHack Masters Grand Finals. Reynor is the summer champion. Congrats to our boy Ricardo taking down Maru in the Grand Finals 4-3. An unbelievably stacked bracket there. Just look at the round of 8. Maru, Hero, Marine, Scarlet, Innovation, Time, Rogue, Reynor, and Dream. Absolutely wild, and Reynor deserved every single ounce of that win. Great play from our Italian boy, and we're glad to see him with another crown on his head. Of course, underway right now, the Warty TV Team Liquid Map Contest. We're checking out some of the new maps, and hopefully they'll be cycled into the ladder for play. We got some of the best in both Europe and in Korea testing out these maps, so go check it out on Warty's channel. The ESL ANZ Champs happening right now with, amazingly, Probe, the former Oceania champion, getting knocked out of the losers bracket in the first round by Mighty Kiwi, setting up for maybe a rematch in the losers round 3. This tournament underway now with Scyther and Pez still up there in the winners bracket. Ducklings casting that, I believe. I think. The winner, I'll buy your dinner. Max Pax taking out Bistork in the grand finals. Wow, tough road for Max Pax, taking out Christianer and Geralt and Forjumi. Wow, what a result there for our boy Max Pax without dropping a single map. So he's a hungry growing boy, and he's gonna need the dinner. But Geralt gets some revenge there in the Pizza Pie bi-weekly, the second tournament to award food as a prize. Every other Sunday at 6 o'clock, sponsored by Alpha X. Geralt takes out Poppy in the grand finals for his 12th pizza. My God. The Legion Cup by Lenovo starts tomorrow. Furious Gaming has announced this Legion Cup, and if you're in Latin America but not Brazil, you're more than welcome to join this one. Furious Gaming LA going to be casting it on Twitch, and you can sign up on Battlefy. So if you haven't signed up for this one yet, there's still a chance. Get in there real fast. The prize is pretty impressive. First place is a gaming laptop from Lenovo, and then second place, $500 US dollars. Really not bad there. So if you're in the Latin American region, you want to win some money, go into the Legion Cup. Sentimiento Latino, of course, one of the longest running Latin American cups. This is going on next week. No, this week. Yeah. 112 on July 9th, so it's coming up. Join the English cast with the Cranky Ducklings, and of course Grizzly in Spanish and Cosmos in Portuguese. This again for Latin American residents only. CSO Cup continuing here. They've got some results from their other events, but no CSO Cup action this week. So we'll be back with number 22 on July 10th. Feel free to sign up. They've got their challenge listed in the show notes. I believe you can type !notes to follow along. The Warty TV Summer Championships have been announced July 27th, and then the actually preliminaries for Europe starting on August 17th. So some good inter-DreamHack action there for Warty, and again, exciting stuff. And of course, if you've just watched the DreamHack Masters and you have some feedback for the team, even if that feedback is hey, this has been great, thanks for doing it, which is still valuable feedback, please do check out the shortened link there, esl.gg/sc2summer-social. That'll allow you to give your feedback on the tour and let them know what you liked. And if there's anything you think they can improve, they love that feedback. So please do give Apollo and the team all of your information. The SEA region, Gogo Joey. This is just a quick note. Gogo Joey becomes the 4th SEA player to win 16-plus tournaments. Mio Micah currently at 2. I believe this is from the OSC. Very cool stuff. But man, look at those winners. Cham and Cristiano are way up top, winning so many tournaments in a single OSC season. And Mio Micah is 2 away from breaking the all-time SEA record set by Demi. Wow, all those years ago. And we move on to Brood War. The Death Fate Pro League has finished up their group play, it looks like. All the players that have qualified through. And was Artosis in this one? That was a different one. I don't see him. He must have been in a different one. Hosted by the Spanish caster Death Fate. So check that one out over on his Twitch channel. The Brood War G's weekly continues, and surprise, surprise, DeWalt 1-0's Dandy in the grand finals. There's a $90 prize pool every week. And again, the best of, I mean, look at the semis there. Scan, Dandy, Lancer X, and DeWalt. Wild stuff. Wild stuff. Oh, this is really cool if you haven't seen this. The ASL Revenge Battles. These are so much fun. Soma over JYJ, Hero over Snow, and Rush 4-0ing Larva. That's, yikes. Poor Larva. Put your shoes back on, buddy. And of course, coming up on the 10th, Speed versus Stork, which ought to be pretty fantastic. Early morning Europe, late night US, and morning-ish in Korea. Check that one out, and you can see all those revenge matches for the ASL 11 happening. Cast by Scan, Nyoken, Death Fate, and Remaster. The Liga Pro Gaming Bolivia, Starcraft Season 1, happening right now. This, by the way, an offline tournament in Bolivia. And I don't think the prize pool is correctly listed here, but this is a great one. Dio, Reynor, Dark, and Conan in the semifinals, this action happening. Go check out the Twitch page of Oli Patrick, who is covering all of this event. The Alpha Omega series. This is nice. Alpha X doing a bit of Brood War action, helping out in the Brood War scene as well. Good work, Alpha X. Always doing a bunch of work. These are 7-game series with Yabsab taking out Dandy and Ample taking out DeWalt. So bad news for the foreign boys as the 2 Koreans slay their way through. Check those out on Tuesdays. There might be another one coming up soon. The Korean Pro King of the Hill. We saw this last week with Light and Soma doing really well last week. This week, Action and Light owning the King of the Hill until the very last one. Queen taking out Light in the last game. And this is, of course, organized by Artie and casted by Tastosis and caster Muse. The AMD Red League, this one's a really cool one as well. You can see group stages, the rounds going on right now with some pretty notable players. Gosu Dark in there, Goku, Terror, a bunch of different cool names. And that will continue on July 13th with Terror and NBA offline, hosted by Oli Patrick. So again, check out Oli Patrick's Twitch page to learn more about that. The Russian Cyber Games, we've been talking about this one for a lot of weeks now. Been hyping it up. It's going to be fantastic. Again, offline in Vladivostok, and $10,660 and $15,000 the prize pool. So that's a ton of money, especially for Brood War and especially for an offline event. So some of the best players from North and Latin Americas, Europe, Russia, and the rest of the world, please give this one some love. Going to be cast in a bunch of different languages. You can contribute to the match at Reno. Just a huge event. I'm jazzed about that one. And of course, finally, if you're not supporting the ASL Tastosis cast, you definitely should. This is the only way that we can get the ASL in English, by supporting our boys who are working hard to bring us that action. So head to their Patreon, and for $5 a month, you get special bonuses. You can give any amount, but if you give at least $5 a month, you get some cool updates from the boys themselves. That's the best way to support the ASL and bring in Brood War to the foreign community. And with that, we are done. That concludes this week in StarCraft. We will see you all next week in StarCraft.